Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are doing well. We are live on the channel on February 27th, 2026, and we are doing the Lunar Eclipse in Virgo readings. If you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up and say hello in the chat. Drop me a message below, especially if this is your guys' first time tuning in. And make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you can see more of these videos. I'm always here on Fridays. We alternate between tarot and astrology, and I'm also here on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays talking about tarot, astrology, all the stuff that's going on in the cosmos. So please do consider joining memberships or subscribing to the channel to see more of my content. And equally, if you guys want to join level 4 memberships, you guys can get a reading with me once a month. You can choose if you want a tarot reading or an astrology reading. It's a super fun way to kind of catch up with me regularly, get the 411 and see what's kind of going down, and also you get to skip the line, so that's great too, and you support me as a full-time content creator. If you guys want to see more about me and my work, maybe you want to learn astrology or pick up a transit calendar so you can see the transits that are happening in your chart in real time, click the links below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. Okay, these always get busy, so I'm going to put this out there now. Last call, we're going to only take, readings for like the next 5 minutes. So if you want to get in the queue to get a reading, to guarantee your spot, scan that QR code. It's going to take you to my PayPal. Please, 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 in the memo box, put your specific question. We're answering one question per person, and you can ask about what's going on with the lunar eclipse, or if you have questions about another transit. We also are doing synastry readings as well, so you got to send the donation there and put your date of birth, time, and location in the memo box, so that way I can cast your chart in real time. So I know we got a lot of people here tonight. Usually these get very busy, so I appreciate your guys' patience. We're going to be doing the readings in the order that we receive them. So if you guys can't stay the whole time, don't worry, this video is going to stay up on my YouTube channel. You can come back and you can scan ahead until you see your name in the top corner for your chart. And leave me a comment and let me know how the reading sits with you. And I hope you guys are doing well. So I'm going to say hi to everybody who's in the chat. We've got Mr. Powers here. We've got Kayla who's back. Amanda's back. What's up, girl? Hey, Angie. If you want to get a reading, just send me your request. Don't send it to me on email because I can't pull up my email while I'm on the screen. But you can send it in the chat with your info. What's up, T? And we've got Diana that joined level 4. Thanks for becoming a member. We've also got Vanessa here. Who else do we have? Kristen and Rosie saying hello. What's up? Hey, Luna. How's everybody doing? Deborah's here. Happy almost lunar eclipse in Virgo. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for eclipse season to be over. What's up, Willow? How's it going? Okay, so if you guys hear your name, let me see if anybody else popped in here really quick. If you hear your name, that means I've already got you. Okay, so listen up for your name. I've got Amanda, Be Well with T, and Diana. You guys are level 4 people. We've also got Mr. Powers in the super chat. We've also got everybody else who's in the queue. So Willow, Kayla, Sasa, Maritza, Sonia, Brian has a synastry reading, Vanessa, Mayad, and we've got Christian. Am I saying that right? What's up? Thank you, Lori. Welcome to level 1. Thanks for supporting my work. What's up, Maritza? Awesome. Well, I'm excited to do the readings for you guys. So get in if you guys want to get into the queue right here. And then we're not doing eclipse readings for 6 months. We're not going to be back until we start seeing the eclipses over the summer. But if you guys want to see more about my kind of predictions for the lunar eclipse in Virgo that's happening on the 3rd, I've got a video on the channel that's all about that. Take you through the 12 signs. We're going to talk about it a little bit in this week's astro weather too. But yeah, this will be the last, not the last one in Virgo, but the last one in Virgo this year. All right, so let's get right into it. So we're going to take our level 4 people first. So Amanda, T, and Diana, you guys are all on deck. And when you guys hear me calling out your name, it's just me letting you know that your reading is coming up, because I know sometimes people are just kind of hanging around, chilling on Friday night. So if you hear your name, pay attention. We're going to start with Amanda. And we've got Amanda here, 29-degree Virgo rising with her sun in Capricorn and her moon in Taurus. So let me scroll back up here so I can get the questions that are at the top. Amanda says, cashing in. Hey girl, can you tell me what to expect for the next few months and how the energy from the eclipse is going to affect me? How will this Mercury retrograde manifest? And do you think the Sag will return? Just let me know what you see. Your readings are always accurate, and I look forward to Friday nights to get your insight. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So first of all, probably the people who I would assume are going to be the most impacted by this eclipse are the Virgos, right? The mutable rising signs too. So if you happen to have like Sag or Pisces or, Gemini in your chart, you're going to be feeling the effects of it. But the reason why I say that it's going to really be impacting the Virgos is not just because it's in the sign of Virgo, okay? It's because this is connected to a cycle that was seeded 6 months ago, back in September of 2025. So it's a concluding eclipse, a lunar eclipse full moon. So we have to go back and look at the storyline of what happened 6 months ago, which is very, very prominent for you because it was right on your ascendant. So that's probably where I would want to start. And it does tie into the Mercury retrograde. If we think about the eclipse that was happening around September 21st, 25, there was a solar eclipse right on your ascendant. And the angles in the chart are extremely sensitive because they represent where there is something that is like being brought to the forefront. So the first house is more about your personal identity, yourself, your body, your appearance, anything that deals with like the physicality of you, and also like how you approach the world. I kind of see like the ascendant sign is kind of like your mini archetype. So Virgo can sometimes be about health, healing, habits, but 29 degrees of Virgo is a critical degree. So it represents that on one hand, there was about to be a new beginning, right? Solar eclipse, new moon, that was being seeded, but it was also a south node eclipse. So it represented for you that you were about to go through this major kind of 6-month window of just a lot of changes and releasing and letting things go. So that could have been physical, emotional, but also this was interesting because it tied directly to the opposition of Saturn and Neptune, which was sitting in your 7th house of relationships. So there's a lot of who am I without a partnership or without some kind of tie to another person who I'm kind of committed to. The relationship dilemmas were kind of written all over this eclipse for a lot of Virgo risings and like Libra risings too. The reason being is that the ruler of this eclipse was Mercury. And Mercury was in Libra, so it was trying to bring you to your attention to your relationship with yourself. And this was trining Pluto, so it was like, well, what is healthy? What's going to make you happy? How can you kind of express what's really kind of on your heart? And it also featured this Mercury, which is your ruler, in opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So there was a lot of like you going, can we work on this? Can we better communicate? Like trying to find ways to negotiate and kind of better express yourself in relationships, because there was like a longing for relationships, I think, with the opposition. And it was really kind of foreshadowing that there was probably going to be some issues where there was going to be a change in a relationship, right? Mercury is opposing Neptune retrograde. So it means that somebody was hiding something, or maybe they were kind of like evasive, or they weren't being completely forthcoming. And then you also see that it was in opposition to Saturn. So it represents where you're trying to communicate and somebody's like, nope, I'm going to kind of like cut you off, or I'm not going to kind of let you in, right? So that's where this was seated. I just want to kind of show you, the process. So it was really good for kind of clearing out anything and anyone that was not going to be ideal for you in a long-term partnership. And it was really going to show you that if people aren't willing to work with you, or if they're not giving you clarity or feedback, then it was going to be a 6-month period of just trying to figure out how to better understand yourself and how to kind of get, I think, more into harmony with what was going to make you happy and make you feel heard. All right, so 6 months later brings us to this next eclipse that we're going to have on March the 3rd. And I always say this with my eclipse readings. For everybody who's getting a reading tonight, and even if you're not, just listen to me so I don't sound like a broken record. Eclipses represent something that is going to clear something out or bring something new in. We are now in the clearing out phase because this is going to be a south node eclipse. So we're having a big emotional release, letting go of maybe feeling unhealthy, overworking, being self-critical, maybe feeling like we're just doing too much. And obviously, Virgo can be dealing with some of these topics, but it's also highlighting the Mercury retrograde. So, as somebody who's been going through the South Node eclipses, also in my 12th house, not a fan. Definitely a lot of changes with sleep, a lot of changes with unhealthy habits. Also, the 12th house can represent self-sabotage or where we're kind of like getting up in our head. And the 12th house Virgo can also represent where there's some unhealthy habits that are going on where you can be kind of self-critical, right? So that's basically more or less what it's kind of highlighting. So it's clearing out this whole last 6 months of some of those cycles where maybe you have felt kind of alone, or you have felt kind of, like rejected, or there was a sense of you feeling like a lot of bad habits maybe were coming up for you emotionally or kind of like psychologically. So now when we look at the Virgo full moon, it's going to be wrapping all that stuff up. It's ruled by Mercury, which is your ruler. And if you look, Mercury is actually retrograding through your 7th house whole sign back into your 6th house Placidus. So it can mean that as a Virgo rising, there is this closing effect that's happening with relationships, and you're finally ready to let certain relationship habits go. And maybe you're recognizing it's not about so much whether or not if somebody comes back, it's more you kind of going, all right, it's time for me to kind of set this free. And what you'll see during the eclipse is hours after the eclipse, the moon is going to come in opposition to Mercury. So it's going to be kind of saying part of this shedding of the old skin is feeling like you have to be in a relationship, or that you have to reconnect with somebody, or that you have to be making amends with somebody or having to talk to someone. And it's going to kind of release that. And then you'll see that the effects of the eclipse are still going to last for a little bit. I think we're going to feel this until like the Mercury retrograde is over, to be honest with you. So, it'll still be kind of shaking out until about the 3rd week of March. We will also see throughout this cycle that Venus and Neptune are coming into conjunction with Saturn. So, I've told you this before, you benefit from listening to Libra rising horoscopes because this is really going to be more of where the planets are actually moving. So while Mercury is trying to get you out of relationships that aren't going to give you the communication that you need, Venus is going to move forward, and she's going to go, okay, well, I'm ready for a new kind of boundary or commitment, or maybe even a new person. Aries can be that because you want relational change. She'll hit Neptune, so it can be a period where a new person can appear, and then she'll hit Saturn. And you're going to kind of see this in this next week. This means that old relationship karma is kind of being cleared. There's new opportunities for relationships that are coming in. And I noticed that you just had an eclipse actually in your 5th house of romance, really very close to your Venus. So probably after the Mercury retrograde, the end of March going into kind of April, relationship stuff is going to kind of get cleared up. It is possible with like an eclipse here, you're kind of driving yourself crazy because you feel like, okay, are they going to come back? Are they not going to come back? And I would say with Pisces energy, you have to be detached, especially when you're having your chart ruler retrograde. If you have the frame of mind where you're like, I don't care if I hear from them again, I don't necessarily want to go back there, I don't even necessarily want to be in a relationship, and you focus more on your daily routines and your habits and kind of being in flow, it's going to be really positive in your chart. You're going to see that Mercury and Venus are trining your Saturn, so it's kind of helping your money. It's also helping anything that deals with your self-esteem. And we also see that there are some planets like the Sun and Mercury and eventually Mars that are also going to trine Jupiter. So it's going to bring some kind of confidence when it comes to your career and your work and your professional life. Of all the retrogrades happening this year, this is the best one. It just so happens to be taking place during like an eclipse season, so it's not ideal. But like the next 2 Mercury retrogrades are not fun. Like the one in Cancer is going to square Saturn. Like the one that's going to be in Scorpio later this year is conjunct Venus retrograde. I am living for some of the trines that we're going to see to Jupiter. And you'll hear as a Virgo rising, if you go and socialize and meet new people, you'll end up meeting a new partnership, or a friend's going to set you up with somebody. If your goals and relationships are changing, then you're going to find that you're aligning with somebody who's going to be more along the lines of what you want, or like a better fit. Can somebody come back during your Mercury retrograde in your 7th? For sure. The lesson here though is that now that Saturn and Neptune are in a new sign, I think this is going to be a situation where there's going to be harsher karmic effects in relationships. For example, right? I look at this and I would go, if for whatever reason he were to come back or try to reconnect with you, Saturn may not actually allow this relationship to materialize unless that person is taking responsibility and they're showing up and being more mature and like taking accountability for what they've done wrong, right? Saturn wants accountability. Neptune is going to kind of be evasive when it comes to accepting responsibility. So you may very well, and other Virgo risings may very well hear from partners from the past, or they might hear that, you know, partners are back and forth and they're like giving them the pretty words and telling them, you know, they want to reconnect. But down the road, when you see these transits, when the sun's coming into conjunction with Saturn and Neptune around the third week of March, and then finally when Mars is coming into conjunction with Saturn and Neptune, like, karmically speaking, I just don't feel like this would work. I feel like it's supposed to be a new person. And it's also really highlighting for a Virgo rising chart whether or not there's trust there, if the trust has been broken. And you have to be very careful either about new people coming in or people from the past coming back, because it would be a matter of maybe about a month and a half, and these transits would come in and then it would be like, boom, okay, well, if they're up to their same kind of antics, it's very quickly going to just fall apart and you're going to kind of cut and sever, or they're going to come back and then they're going to disappear again. So it's my opinion, looking at some of these transits, that what it's trying to do prior to this transit is to help you build on your self-esteem, build on your communication with trines to Saturn, and know your worth and not feel like you have to just wait for that person to come back or to choose you. It's about being like, I don't want this. And as it's making nice aspects to Jupiter in your 10th, it's also really great for, like, you know, taking accountability for your feelings. It can be really great for your career. And I really think that from a whole sign perspective, it's really great to, like, spend time with your friends personally and your community. And you might have, like, friends or people in your network who are like, girl, don't go back to him. You know, why would you want to go back to him? Let me set you up with somebody better. Let me connect you with somebody who's different. And we need to see something very strong going on with your natal Saturn or Jupiter for there to be something very big happening with your love life. Well, you know, Jupiter's going to trine Saturn here, but that's not going to be until later in the summer. So that would be one window. And then when we look at what's going to be happening with your natal Saturn, which is in Scorpio, so then we're also looking at transit Jupiter. Jupiter is also going to be making some trines down the road. Let's see, also to your Saturn. So Jupiter will trine. And then we have the Mercury retrograde that's trining. So nothing's happening right now. I think you're going to see probably a big kind of clearing out of relationship karma. I would encourage you to be kind of open to who's new that's coming in and watch what's going to be happening right around the first half of April, because this either means that you're taking a stand and you're ready for a fresh start, or it could mean that, you know, seventh house could be others. You know, suddenly something's not working out in his new relationship, or, you know, they have a falling out and then he comes back and he's like, well, I'm alone now. Like, you know, I want you back. Whatever's going on here is more about the karma with other people. And if other people are going to have a sense of self-awareness and be able to show up and partner with you. And so it's kind of like, it's hard to kind of predict, because Saturn can suggest that an older person comes into your life who's serious and committed. Neptune could mean it's a foreigner. It could also mean that this is somebody who's very creative, or they're very spiritual, or maybe they spend time on water, or they're into, like, meditation or photography. And then Mars is going to be something that's, like, very quick. So there's going to be, like, a quick exit or a quick severing, and you can't really fully trust relationships until you get to the second half of April. Watch what's going on with your health and your habits. I think that the eclipse sitting in your 12th house, it's not anywhere as close to your ascendant as it was, but at a 12 degree, it can represent now there's, like, a lot of emotional clearing and, like, more of a need for rest and kind of isolation and not being super consumed with what's happening with relationships. And I feel like if he does come back around, or if you guys connect, the likelihood is it's going to be because he's either bored or he's lonely, or, you know, something didn't work out. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, like, what's going on? And he's, like, wanting to connect with you. Obviously for, like, Sagittarius risings, right, you're seeing all of, like, the eclipses and stuff that's kind of impacting them directly connected to their career. And also you see the retrograde that's connected to their 4th house. So they could have a lot of job changes. They could have, like, a whole emotional shift and changes going on at their home and their family. And they could be feeling very much in their feelings, and they can be reminiscing about the past. Even Mercury going, you know, retrograde through their 4th house is whether or not they want to connect with somebody from the past. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of changes. And I would be super, super focused on seeing who comes in that's new. And that would probably be the end of April You'll also see some nice transits that are going to be over the summer when Jupiter starts trining Saturn, and that'll also, I think, produce not only a lot of good things for your social life, but that's when you can really start to see relationships that are going to stick. You get one more eclipse in Pisces that's going to be also over the summer. So you think you have a lot to look forward to July, August, and September relationship-wise. But there is still one final lesson that needs to be cleared out. And doesn't mean you have to hear from him to learn that lesson. It could just be you going, yeah, I don't want to carry, forth in these kind of relationship patterns in the future. It may mean that it's time for you to actually let somebody go so you can let somebody new in. And that's really what some of the the retrograde, I think, is really going to be about for you. But I think that I would watch, like the Mercury-Jupiter transits are really highlighting more that it's going to be about work for you, or where there's some changes with your health habits and like feeling a little bit more productive or better organized, getting back to the gym, focusing on your health. And I'd be incorporating flow things. So swimming, meditating, stretching, yoga, Pilates, all of that stuff can be really good when you're having all these retrogrades in your 6th house. So hopefully that's helpful. Definitely come back to me, the 411, and let me know what happens after the eclipse, but it can definitely be a window where somebody new is actually getting ready to come into your life. All right, so let's see. What's up, Laka? Hey, Enchanted. David's here too. What's going on, guys? Hey, Pedro. All right, so we've got Be Well with T, and then we've got Diana. Let's see what T has to say. Like to cash in 815, 80, 839 in Baton Rouge. Will I become a wellness fishing guide now that my mom is ready for me to come get the boat that I inherited 2 summers ago? Trying to honor the highest self with this and has been back and forth and has been backburnered. Who am I now? Fishing guide. The boat is in Texas. I'm in Arizona. Can you see if this month is the month I take action, or do I wait until April? Fishing is starting to heat up now and I need to get things lined up. Been back and forth with that ex that I reconnected with in December, and I'm pretty sure this is hobbies and entrepreneurship related. All right, well, let's take a look. So you're going to see, as a Pisces rising, that this eclipse is right on your descendant. So 7th house could be a number of things. First of all, 7th house is, clients, right? It can be services, opportunities and things that you have or you can offer, being a guide or taking people fishing or taking them boating, especially because it's at a 12. Okay, so it's saying that there is this kind of climax where you're like, all right, I got to get this in order so I can start kind of offering some of these services to people. Because the moon rules your 5th house, which is going to be about self-employment and creative opportunities, yes, it looks like it's time to get the show on the road. And the 7th house is where we meet others. So the fact that you have to literally during the retrograde, Mercury is the ruler of this particular eclipse, you have to change direction and you have to go back home, or you have to get something from another location to be able to offer this service is like point blank, right? So I think the other thing that I would take into consideration is like traveling is going to be more Venus. So Venus is actually, starting to lose the trine that she's been having with Jupiter, while Mercury is going retrograde and it's coming into a trine with Jupiter. So you've got certain days that are going to be better than others. My advice would be probably when Mercury is coming back into a trine with Jupiter, that would be a good day to be getting on the road and kind of doing some of this stuff. So you're going to see the Cazimi is going to be right around the 7th. That could also represent, because it's at a Cancer degree, that you're working it into your schedule to figure out how you can kind of get there. You'll have some decent travel transits with the moon going through Scorpio, trining Mars in the North Node. Pretty much the 7th, 8th, even into the 9th of March. Because that's just going to be better flow for timing. Granted, Mercury is retrograde, okay? So I do want you to know that there can be some delays and some kind of setbacks and challenges with the timing. But the irony that the retrograde for Leos is 8th house to their sun. So it's about going and acquiring something that they inherited. If you can't swing it in this next week, the other option that you have is you can do this when the Venus is coming out of an opposition with Saturn. You have got Venus coming into conjunction with Saturn. I mean, Venus-Saturn is about you going and acquiring something that is going to be useful for you to make money that might deal with with water. If you want to wait until the new moon, you could do that too. You're going to have a new moon sextiling Uranus in your third. And then Venus is now starting to come into a trine with your North Node and your Sun, which is going to be closer to about March 18th and 19th. The only hiccup is that to me, it looks like, you know, regardless with the Mercury retrograde, you weren't going to be ready to start offering these services yet. Maybe you can actually use the Mercury retrograde to your advantage, where, you know, the retrograde could mean that you have somebody helping you with the process of going and getting the boat. Or maybe it means that you start promoting your services and you take pre-bookings, or you're starting to work on anything that's connected to, hey, this is my, you know, my website, this is the packages that I'm offering. You start putting it out there to see if people are going to have an interest in it. And then what you probably want to do is you want to start actually doing this and getting ready to launch it after the new moon that's going to be in Pisces. Mercury will be direct. Jupiter is going to be dealing with your career. You're going to see Mars coming into a conjunction, into a trine with Jupiter right around the 21st. She says, thank you. Yes, I've looked into Leo, Gemini, and Gemini placements. I can get the license first, then work from a local lake without a boat first. So there you go. Licensing documents, it's very much a Mercury thing. But it would be great to see you be able to start doing this literally like a month from now. If you can be like launching it or announcing it or taking bookings or doing some of that stuff right around the 21st, that would be really good astrology with Mars trine Jupiter, and also after like that new moon phase that's going to be happening. Making money is going to be more Mars. So knowing that Mars is on your ascendant and it's also trining Jupiter and it's in water signs, it's a good time to kind of get the show on the road. And making money dealing with something that's like independent and being like a guide is very Jupiter. So yeah, I think this is a wonderful time to go and get it. Just see who might help you along the way. A lot of this does correlate with what you're trying to do with like your business, but the eclipse right on your Jupiter means like there's also big things that are going to be happening with relationships. It's right on top of your Jupiter. So it's saying that it's bringing you into connection with other people that, sure, it could be more relating to your self-employment, but this is a very like relationship oriented kind of eclipse. So there can be big conversations happening revolving around that person who you reconnected with, the days and the weeks revolving around the eclipse. And it might mean that there is somebody who you end up meeting through these eclipses, like there's a new relationship opportunity, or that the person who you're talking to is talking to you about helping you going and getting the boat or setting up some of this like creative kind of business stuff. So something like that could potentially be happening as well. I have a friend to tow the boat. I welcome love. Yeah, but watch for this, because last year when you had the solar eclipse in your 7th, it was opposing Saturn and Neptune. So it was like kind of saying, hey, right around the spring of 2026, people were going to start showing up. And you were like, yeah, no, I'm good kind of like being on my own and doing my own thing. But now people are going to start kind of showing up into your life who are going to want to help you, Virgo. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And Leos too, I think with the eclipses happening in Aquarius, that was also supposed to be relationship oriented. In your 12th house, you just didn't see it coming, but love stuff is actually going to get quite good, especially over the summer. So hopefully that's helpful. Sending you lots of good vibes for launching that guide business. That sounds like a lot of fun. All right, so we've got Diana. So Diana's next. Thanks for becoming a member, girl. Welcome to level 4. So let me get acquainted with your chart. You have a Libra rising, you have Sun in Capricorn, your moon is in Virgo. And let's see what Diana has to say. All right, so she says, I want to cash in on my reading. January 10th, 1985, and that was at 12:33 a.m. in Los Angeles. And she says, I'm currently in my Jupiter-ruled 6th perfection year, and although it's typically not the year for relationship, I was wondering if there was a window which I can expect romance. All right, well, let's take a look. You're right about that. Usually the 6th house year is a lot of getting things in order when it comes to yourself. And anything that deals with your health, your habits. Think of the 6th house as like before you go on a first date, right? You fix your hair, you brush your teeth, you change, put some makeup on, and you make sure that, you know, your stuff is all in order so you're like presentable. So like the 6th house year can materialize as getting things and affairs in order before we get into what will be the 7th house year, which it sounds like you know is going to be happening around your birthday in January of 2027. For us to see something significant happen with a relationship, we need to see something big going on with your Mars, because Mars is the ruler of your 7th house, or we need to see something happening with, you know, transit Mars maybe. So right now, when we look at your chart, just recently, the North Node has been in conjunction to your Mars. And if we look at this, we think of this from like the whole sign perspective. So, you know, I'm a Placidus user, but Perfections do use whole sign. So in your whole sign 6th house, you have Venus and Mars. So that's you and that's other people. So that's one thing that's working in your benefit that could actually bring in a relationship this year, because you have your ruler and your 7th house ruler in your whole sign 6. Anyway, what you want to watch for is, are there going to be any conjunctions to Mars? And there is. You're going to see a Mercury retrograde over there. You also want to be taking a look at what's going to be happening with Jupiter. So your natal Jupiter is in your whole sign 4th. It's conjunct the sun, and Jupiter is your time lord. So what you want to do is you want to go in like this, and you want to see, first of all, what's happening in my 6th house. Well, you're about to have a retrograde there. So with Mercury retrograde, it's picking up the energy of the 12th house, which I actually think for Libra risings is unfinished business. So it could mean there's unfinished business at work. It could mean there's health stuff you need to tend to. There's habits that you need to tend to. It could mean that there's job changes. Maybe you're going back to the gym. You're focusing on your wellness routine. And what you are going to see is that Mercury is going to retrograde back over Mars, and Mars is at a 12. So you might have dreams of exes, or maybe you're doing meditations or mantras or rituals trying to bring in a new potential relationship. And I would watch for these dates. I would watch for when Mercury hits Mars. So that'll be right around here, like right around the 10th, 11th, 12th of March. And it's also trying to heal old relationship wounds. And then at the same time, you have Mars in conjunction to Venus. So in my mind, if something's going to happen, it's literally going to be right around there, like right around that time. And if it doesn't happen, then you need to watch for when Mars goes into your 7th. Now, Venus will be there, so there's definitely dating opportunities end of March into April. Although you're dealing with Chiron right on your descendant, so it means that you're kind of tending to healing relationship wounds. Sometimes Chiron on the descendant can bring in wounded people. Sometimes it can also bring in a relationship that helps you like heal and like trust again. So watch for that at the end of March. And then we're gonna watch Mars go into your whole sign 7th house. And this is where you need to be cautious in relationship land. This is gonna be around, let's say, the 9th of April until Mars passes Saturn. Now that doesn't really have anything to do with your annual perfection year because you're in a Jupiter year, but this is saying like it's going to show you what is and is not healthy in relationships. And then I think the big turning point is going to be here when you have an eclipse around the end of August. That's going to be right on top of your Venus and your Mars, right? And then by then you're also starting to see Jupiter trining Saturn, which is in your whole sign 7th. And Jupiter is in your whole sign 11th. You could, and you should always know where Venus is, but you should be listening to Scorpio rising horoscopes, because a lot of the transits that you're experiencing are more along the lines of Scorpio because you're a 3rd decan Libra. She says, let's see, I'm self-employed and I started a detox program on Monday. Okay, so if you're a self-employed Scorpio and you're going through like the Mercury retrograde, you know, in your, you're not a Scorpio rising, but if it's like Scorpio rising, the Mercury retrograde's in the 5th. So how can I get my business in order? What am I doing to feel more inspired, to feel more creative? Am I getting back into dating? Yes, I think all of these things you can definitely do. And she says, let's see, just open to what Mercury retrograde is starting on my mood. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person. And he's doing an outpatient program. Okay, so For you, I would say, Diana, you know, there's still a lot of getting some things in order. And I don't know if this is just relating to your work in your 5th house, whole sign 6th house, but you'll see things that are going to change, I think, relationship wise, once you're getting into the eclipse that's going to be here in August. And then a lot of Libra risings are going to go through a lot of relationship changes this year because they're also going to see a Venus retrograde. And when Venus is going retrograde in October, and it's coming into like square with Mars and also Pluto, this is another big turning point, September into October of 2026. And relationship stuff will become more prominent next year when Saturn is coming into your 7th house. So you're really going to see that spring and summer of 2027. And by then, you'll be in your 7th house year. So for example, if you look at, once again, the ruler of your 7th house, which is Mars in the 6th, you will either probably meet this person through work. It can also be a younger person because it's in your 5th. Look for somebody who's like a Pisces or like a Leo, like a sun, moon, or rising, or they have a lot of 12th house or a lot of 5th house placements. You could also meet them at like a theater, a casino, a bar, something like that, because you have Mars in the 5th. And I think the lesson here for you know, Libra risings is that they're trying to get work kind of, you know, taken care of and kind of handled, and then they're going to be more focusing on relationships basically from April all the way through August, right? Typically younger guys hit on me. Well, if you have Mars and Venus in the 5th house, yeah. And that's a great aspect to have. I mean, that's basically saying when you do settle down, it's going to be somebody who might be younger, it's going to be for love, it's going to be a good connection, and you have like Venus and Mars trining Pluto. I mean, obviously it does slightly make some squares to your natal Uranus, but believe it or not, the more that you're pouring yourself into your creative business with Mars being in your 5th house and you're focusing on that, it actually enhances your relationships. So I think you're going to see through the retrograde that you're being redirected to focus on your work and your habits, but it's going to give you the opportunity to strengthen your Mars so that way you can have a lot more relational things that can be going on throughout the next year, but especially next year. Go back and think about what happened when you turned 30. It's always 18, 30, 42. And for Libra risings in particular, the year that you turn 42 is like a really big relationship year because that's like where the 7th house really kind of perfects. So it should actually be quite an amazing year. And it can be a year also where not only you fall in love, but like it could be where you're contemplating whether or not you want to have a kid. So you might see some of that stuff that's going to be coming up next year. You might meet somebody who inspires you to potentially want to do those things. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Diana. Definitely come back, give me the rundown. Let me know what happens after you get through Aries season. All right, and then let me add Angie here. I'll push you in here. Thanks, Angie. You're welcome. Make sure I've got the right info. Angie, can I get your birth info again? Or did you send it in the PayPal? Let me see. Uh, 9/9/2000. Let's see, 9/9/2000, 5 p.m. There we go. All right, Angie, this is for your son. Just opened what Mercury retrograde starting on my moon, which is conjunct. Okay, so I want to make sure I have the right info on my PayPal too. My son and I have the exact same Jupiter in Sagittarius, and he's a major Virgo stellium. I want to make sure I have the right person. Tell me what I can expect to read. Adriana Garza is a very different person than Angie, right? Angie Beers. I don't know if I have your chart saved, Angie. Send me your info. Just so you guys know, the readings are closed. I have a few different Angies, so I don't know which one it is. You're going to have to tell me, so I'm going to come back to you. All right, Angie, let me know when you get that info, okay? I need your birth information. So I'm going to take Mr. Powers. All right, January 23rd, 95, Aries rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Libra. What's up, Mr. Powers? I was looking at your chart before we went live and I was like, what is going on? So Matt says, job situation is not going well. My mentor teacher said the bosses aren't happy with my performance. I talked to both my bosses and they sent an email with expectations. Parent-teacher conferences are the day of the eclipse and my next observation is March the 5th. I'm really questioning if I'm on the right path. When will the situation get better? I feel like Pluto is kicking my ass. Or is it a different transit making it feel so tough? I'm worried this job doesn't go well. I won't be able to get another job in teaching and I'll have to start over in a new career. It's a combination of things. Thanks, Angie. I'll take you right after Matt. I wouldn't necessarily just blame Pluto, okay? Because, yeah, Pluto hitting your sun, because in your Placidus chart, Pluto represents a crisis of, you know, your career, your purpose, in your case, the services that you offer to children and your occupation. But I don't necessarily think it's that. I think it's a combination of two things going on. I think it's the fact that the North Node has been in conjunction to your Saturn, which rules your career. Okay, so it is highlighting that there is just more expectation when it comes to your performance at work, and bosses and people being kind of like critical behind the scenes of you, or being a little bit harder on you in terms of like your professional kind of mannerisms and your reputation. The 12th house is also very much connected to like hidden enemies and people who are kind of throwing you off your horse, or people who are potentially trying to kind of disrupt things, especially emotionally or energetically or psychically. So there's much higher expectations here, and it's something that you feel even if you're not necessarily seeing that. And then two, the other thing that's kind of going on is this Mercury retrograde is going to go right over your Saturn. So if Saturn is your career and Mercury transits you can have some challenges with because it's intercepted in the 6th, it means sometimes there could be criticism coming from coworkers and people that you're working with that you don't see coming, right? So there can be the sense with the Saturn Mars transit that can be indicating that, you know, they're keeping an eye on you to see if you're going to buckle under pressure, or if you're going to kind of cave, or if you're going to give way to something, or if you're going to give up and kind of wave the flag and be like, that's it, I quit, I give up. And then the Mercury retrograde will come into conjunction with Mars. So there's a few different ways that I could see this materializing. Number one, first we get to the eclipse. So you're going to have the eclipse that's going to be taking place in your third house, in your 6th house on the 3rd. It is possible, because this dates back to the last eclipse where there was a new moon in Virgo where it was really pushing you to kind of work on your skills, be of service, do a good job. And you've been doing that, but it was opposing Saturn and Neptune. So that means that there was some sense of them having like unrealistic expectations that they were kind of putting on you. And it was also showing you some of your blind spots in some areas where you could be like working on some of that and like developing some of your skills better. And really it was a test, I think, of your confidence more than anything. So here we are 6 months later, the full moon lunar eclipse comes in the 6th. And like, you know, the truth is could there be a job change that can happen within, you know, a week or a month with like an eclipse like this? Yes, it can happen. But you need to see more than just one transit. The other thing that I would be looking for is that you're going to be seeing the ruler, Mercury, retrograding in the 12th, which means you could be literally stressing yourself out, losing sleep, worrying, giving up about something that has not happened yet. So I would say don't lose sleep over something that you don't quite know is going to happen yet. You need to see what's going to play out. Eclipses can clear things out, so this can just as easily clear out your fears, your blockages, anything where you're losing sleep, you're feeling anxious about what's going to happen with your work. And it is at a 12, so it is saying that like your emotions can be impacting your performance or impacting your health as well. Then you're going to be seeing Mercury will come into conjunction with Mars. So you have the Cazimi here, so it can be about some conversation you have with a superior around the 7th that's giving you some insight into your job. And then you're going to see this transit. When Mercury is retrograde conjunct Saturn, where there is a reevaluation of your position and also your work, and it is right on top of your Saturn, I would be more focused on what's happening the 13th, the 14th, the 15th of March. Because it's telling me it's not defined yet. You know, you may have another, reevaluation. There may be back and forth conferences that you have. You might have another sit down. But this, to me, with like an eclipse factored in with your work lord retrograde over your Saturn, which is going to be karmic, and then Mars is there. This is the day that you're either going to find out whether or not you're going to stay, give or take a day on each side, or it's going to be the day where you decide whether or not you're going to give up and you're going to say, I'm releasing this, I don't want to do this anymore. Whether it's the job or the fears of criticism and people being kind of hard on you. And then you'll see the Mercury transit hit then Mars hits Saturn around the 16th, and then Mercury goes direct. And then when Mercury comes into conjunction with Saturn, that could also represent a time where you're having another reevaluation, or they're observing you again, or they're, making a bigger decision about your, position. I'd be very surprised if they're doing this, because Pisces represents changing of the seasons. Like, I'd be very surprised if they let you go right now. They may be reevaluating and going back and forth, trying to determine whether or not they're going to bring you back next year, or if they're going to keep you at the grade that you're in, or if they feel like you're improving. But I don't necessarily think there's going to be a job change. Even down the road, right? You're going to have like a Mars retrograde there at the beginning of next year. You're going to have a Jupiter transit there that's going to be starting, next year. It really talks about the potential for you being like, is it that I want out of teaching, or is it that I'm not necessarily where I'm supposed to be? And so much of this is psychological, and it can really, really, really psych you out, especially the days that you're seeing either Mercury or Mars sitting in conjunction to your Saturn. And very unrealistic expectations. And unfortunately, when Saturn's in your 12th house, it can mean that you try to kind of hide from, superiors and people who are going to be kind of keeping an eye on you. And I would say, no, go against that energy. Don't be afraid. Don't be trying to hide away. Don't be trying to kind of be skittish or being evasive with them. Talk to them, be friendly, communicate, get the feedback that you need to get with them, and be willing to face some of these challenges head on, and be willing to sit down and talk to them about it. Mercury is saying, let's talk about it. What are you guys seeing that I'm not seeing? What concerns do you guys have that you're not telling me? Or what feedback are you getting from some of the people who are observing me? Literally, I can see it's older people. So there's people who have either been teaching longer, they've been there longer, people who might feel kind of threatened, and people who might kind of feel like they're just wanting to exercise their seniority over you. It's not necessarily a lack of you being able to do your job. But inevitably, when you start to see Saturn then crossing your ascendant, it can represent you going, okay, you know what, if something did change, or if I'm not getting the feedback, I can't let that impact my sense of knowingness that this is what I'm supposed to do. I can't not have it knock my ability to feel like I'm good enough or successful enough or capable enough. So yeah, you've got about 3 different transits that are all hitting at one time. But when this is over at the end of March going into April, I think it's going to be more about whether or not you still want to be teaching. I still think it's going to be more about whether or not they're debating if they're going to bring you back next year. So come back and let me know what happens. But it's not necessarily Pluto, because Pluto is moving off of your sun now. It will be back, but down the road, knowing that you're going to have some retrogrades happening in your 6th house, and there's still going to be some eclipses in your 6th house, I think it's more about where you are working. And if you're working in an environment where you feel like you have, supportive staff and other like faculty who aren't just trying to kind of be out for like the new guy or the person who's like younger, or somebody who has less experience. And I also think it may be kind of opening your eyes to, hey, is this the type of environment that I actually want to be in? At the end of the day, later this year, you're going to start seeing, as Uranus gets into Gemini, it's going to start squaring your Saturn. So is it possible that you would consider or contemplate, going in another direction with education? Sure. It's in opposition to Pluto right now. So I don't think it's going to be like you going back to school and getting like a 4-year degree or going and getting like a master's degree. It would be something that you're going to do more either remotely or something you could do, like part-time. It could also mean that you start deciding if you want to do some like education and working with people in a digital manner. So maybe you're going to be doing some work for, like pods and local pods and schools that are, like wanting to bring students in independently in smaller groups. It could also mean that you start doing some lesson plans or some tutoring or anything that deals with education in a digital way. So if you're feeling like, I don't want to be around people, I've been kind of burned, I want to go and work for an institution that's going to be maybe working with homeschoolers or other things, that may actually be something that you can consider. It looks like this year you're also in a Mars year. So, that just got started at the end of January when you had your birthday. So if we look at your chart, your natal Mars, which is the ruler of your 8th house, which is about change, is in your whole sign 5th, and it's retrograde. So it's about you getting your confidence back. It's about you getting your groove back. It's about you learning how to connect with younger people in a new way, maybe even like dating in a different way, right? So there's going to be something like that that's going to be coming up. And Mars transits are incredibly, incredibly important. So if your Mars is retrograde in your whole sign 5th house, it could mean it's going to have you rethinking, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this how I want to make money working with kids? That makes me double down on the Mars conjunct the North Node transit, which is going to be about some kind of change or transformation. So that's right around the 12th. When Mars hits your Saturn, so something around that 14th, 15th, 16th. And then when you see Mars go into Aries, there is some like powerful renewal that's going to happen. And then it's going to start trining your Pluto and your Jupiter. So you're not going to know what's happening until about mid-April. Go through this, be confident. Don't let them spook you and kind of shake you down, because I think that's what's going on. And if you can deal with some of these problems head on and be like, look, what are you guys seeing that I'm not seeing? Like, I want to improve, but you have to let me know what it is, or you have to be willing to kind of talk to me. I think it can actually be very beneficial, and you can get it all out in the open. And it would really surprise me if there was going to be a job change right in the middle of like the school year. I assume school gets out at like what, May? So you could even go to that period of time and go, all right, well, what's happening around then? If the South Node's still moving through here, you may not actually see a potential job change until right around here. And that would be in July or August. And that's right around the time that you're having eclipses in the 5th house. So you may be working or collaborating or connecting with like kids in a different way. Don't fear what's about to happen. Having Saturn sit on your ascendant anyway, and like the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, there was potentially going to be this realization that's like, do I want to do something different? Do I want to work independently? Do I need to look at a new way to kind of like start focusing on education? And I think that whatever ends up happening, you're going to be happier because you're going to see Saturn trining Jupiter over the summertime. So don't fear whatever is going on when you're in your 8th house year. The change is actually going to be quite positive for you. If there's a change. For all we know, it could be that there's a different grade that you're working, with, or you're teaching, or maybe you go to like a different, program, or you're working with somebody else, but I don't necessarily think it's spelling out that it's the end. Let me know what happens. All right, we've got Angie, so let me put Angie in here. Let's see. 421.71. No, that's not her. There we go. All right, so Angie says, just to what this Mercury retrograde starting on my moon. All right, let's start there. So if it's starting on your moon, it's in your second house, Placidus. So it's about a re-evaluation when it comes to money, resources, home expenses, communicating with siblings, neighbors. It can also be about partnerships and reevaluating communication and relationships, okay? Like I said before, this is a pretty decent Mercury retrograde. The fact that it's retrograding over your 7th house Lord opens the door for you to be able to better connect either with family or romantic relationships. You're also going to see that in the midst of the retrograde, it's coming into conjunction with Venus. It's happening like right now into tomorrow. So Venus is actually going to be about your sun because it's your 5th house ruler. So about reconnecting, communicating, discussing home, feelings, things that are connected to their emotional habits and behaviors, and what's going on with your kid, if you have one. Okay, so is conjunct my adult son who just finished his Saturn return. He also is an outpatient program, and my big question was my son and the exact same Jupiter in early Sagittarius, and he's a major Virgo stellium. So it's literally in your chart, even if it's not, it sounds like it is hitting some of his personal planets. Pisces can be about healing, private spaces, things that deal with rehabilitation, things that are connected to addiction, emotional, and kind of like mental health things. So it's probably going to be bringing up some heart-to-heart conversations with Venus and Mercury on your moon about how you're feeling, how he's doing. Obviously, Venus rules your sun, so it's about karmic responsibility, especially when it comes to habits, Taurus, what he's consuming, what he's eating, what he's drinking. And then you're also going to see that this is all being influenced by Jupiter. So Jupiter in the 7th, it means you're getting feedback from a partner, you're getting feedback from an astrologer, you're getting feedback from a therapist, and you're trying to enhance the way that you can kind of communicate with your family. That's going to be a big topic with Saturn and Neptune going into Capricorn. Going into Aries for Capricorn risings. I think it's going to be like home and family, emotional kind of patterns, family lineage, things that are connected to Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune is notorious for patterns that deal with karma, especially in the 4th house, and families when it deals with addiction, mental health issues, habits, and some people having to be more independent, grown up, and maybe taking a little bit more of like a firmer stance about being like, look, this is how I feel and this is what I want to do to help you or to support you. But by the same token, that there are certain things that you're going to not allow, or there's going to be certain boundaries that you're going to keep within your home. So it can manifest as, especially in about a month or two, when Venus is starting to, move past this conjunction, and then Mars and Saturn is going to show up, that you're like, I need peace on the home front. I don't want to be feeling like I'm taking care of people, or, there is a sense of you feeling like you need to have more of a say with what's going on in your home. So this is giving you that opportunity through the conjunction to Venus, through the trines to Jupiter, to be like, let's have these conversations in a, nurturing, motherly, emotional, empathic way. But by the same token, it's going to be about you being like, no more. And if your natal moon is on his Saturn, right? So his Saturn is then in Pisces, and I think you said he's a Sag rising. So it's literally about reconnecting with his mom, and his mom, talking to him about their relationship and what she can do to support him, but also, where that leaves him in terms of where he's living, or whether or not he can come home, or whether or not you're involved in his care or his living situation in some capacity. So it's quite literal. A lot of Sag risings, I think, are going to be kind of thrown for a loop here because their relational dynamics are going to change. Their family relationships are going to change. Some of them are maybe going to be contemplating moving back, going back home, reconnecting with relatives. In your chart, it's a lot friendlier because it's going to sextile your Mars. So it's going to give you the confidence to have these conversations. It's going to be right on top of your moon. So you're reflecting more deeply in terms of telling people how you feel. And it's sextiling your Saturn, which means it's going to help you have a little bit more, I think, firm boundaries and like tough love when it comes to a kid. Enjoy this transit while it lasts,
because once it's over and you start seeing all these planets that are getting into Aries, you know, mid-April going into May, it's going to be a lot more difficult to kind of deal with. We have the same Jupiter placement. Is that good? So you had him during your Jupiter return. Yeah, I mean, you know, his is technically, if he's a Sag, it could be his, you know, let's just say his whole rising sign. So Jupiter being his chart ruler and also being in Sagittarius is a pretty strong placement. But it looks like Jupiter by sign is squaring his Saturn. So that means he has a tendency to do excess. Why? Because he doesn't deal with his emotions, Saturn and Pisces. Or maybe he's a little flighty, he wants to get out, he wants to travel, he wants to do things, but he doesn't really feel grounded. So if he's just finishing his Saturn return, this is the finale of his Saturn's return, because now we're seeing eclipse season, we're seeing a Mercury retrograde, and maybe now there's this realization that he has to reconnect with family, he has to connect with his mom, he has to kind of get settled or deal with some of his emotions, and it's a lesson for him about expansion and contraction. It's pretty common. I see a lot of women when they have their Jupiter return, sometimes they have a baby, or when they have, you know, Jupiter on their ascendant. So yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that both of you guys are going to have similar kind of Jupiterian values. And in your chart, it's in your 11th house, and it's quincunx your sun. So there is a tendency to be like, okay, I can do both things. I can do the home and the family and the groundedness, but then there's also the sense of needing to get out, explore, have community, have some kind of spiritual practice or something that you're doing that's going to give you, I think, less of like a practical kind of like Capricorn, Taurus kind of grounded approach. And it may be travel, it might be just like social connections and, you know, being a part of communities. But if you guys have the same Jupiter, you're going to have the same interests, you're going to have the same philosophy about life, or the same kind of, you know, taste for culture, or even like comedy or like entertainment and that kind of stuff. But this is a very friendly Mercury retrograde. The next one will not be friendly. So once that one starts happening in your 7th house over the summer, it's going to square Saturn, and it's also going to square your natal Uranus. So that's going to bring up a lot of relational dynamics and some challenges that you're going to potentially have. I've told all my Capricorn risings, use this to have all of your important travel plans made. If you need to be moving, if you need to deal with vehicles, if you need to deal with documents, and if you need to have heart-to-heart with family members, because the next few are going to be quite gnarly. Hopefully that's helpful for you. That's cool that you guys have the same Jupiter. All right, so those are my level 4 people. Amanda, we got T, Diana, Angie, we got Mr. Powers. So we're gonna be moving on to everybody else who's in the queue. So thank you guys for your patience. I'm just playing catch up. What's up, Lotus? What's going on? It's okay, Diana. I got you. You're the last person who came in. All right, so we're gonna have Willow, and then we have Kayla and Sasa. Am I saying that right? Sasa? All right, I got a couple Willows here. Which one is it? 3371. All right, Willow, another Libra rising. Are you guys okay? It's the late Libra risings too, all of you guys. All right, she says, help. I need a job and more affordable home. I may relocate. My relationship feels karmic and unhealthy. I'm overwhelmed and unsure where to begin. Does this eclipse with my chart point to a clear direction or priority? All right, my dear. Let me see something here. So 2020. Well, hold on a second. Do I have the right time or date? Okay, 71. All right, I was like, am I saying this right? I'm trying to do math in my head. Dope. All right, so you're in a Mars Aries perfection year. So that's going to kind of flavor some of the things that I'm going to be telling you right now. So let's look at your chart whole sign. It'll make more sense. Okay. So that way you can see what I'm looking at. So the reason why I'm leading with the relationship stuff is because this is something that kind of needs to be dealt with this year. If you look at annual perfections up until March, so you've got about another couple days, Mars transits are going to be very, very important for you. So last year you went into your Mars year. In 2025, you saw Saturn and Neptune go into Aries, which means you were starting to see some of the limiting emotional or home-related dynamics with relationships. Neptune was showing you where there were some unhealthy habits and some unhealthy karmic relationship dynamics that are kind of going on, right? So with that being said, we have to take a look at when planets are in your 7th house and also where your natal Mars is. Your natal Mars is in the 3rd. So a lot of it's about communication in relationships and whether or not you're feeling like you're able to converse and go back and forth and get what you need from partners. Also by sign, Mars does kind of square your Mercury and your Pisces, your Mercury and your Sun in Pisces. And this can indicate, because it's 12th house to your 7th, that you can be in relationships with people who kind of like gaslight you, or people who have unhealthy habits, or potentially people who have like mental health issues or like addiction issues. So your birthday is going to be on the eclipse, obviously. That means it's going to be a big year of kind of closure and conclusions. And you'll move away from your 7th house year into your 8th house year. So if we look at this, before we actually get to the eclipse, you have Saturn and Neptune that are sitting there now. You have Venus that's about to come into conjunction with your with Neptune and Saturn, and this is going to show you where you're like, I'm really not happy and I'm not getting what I need. And then your birthday will have already happened, and you're in your 7th house, and you're in your 8th house year. Venus rules your 8th house year, and in the 8th house you have Saturn, which means you feel restricted or limited or bound by like financial issues or entanglements that you have with like a partner's money or land or property. Your natal Venus is located in the 5th. And you have had Venus and Pluto in conjunction. That's enough to kill relationships too, but it's kind of peppered all over the chart. It's basically saying you have to ask yourself, is it making you happy? Does it feel like love? And Pluto will come in and it'll really purify and kind of change and challenge the way that you look at love and what you value. And Venus in Aquarius is like, I want freedom, but you're also dealing with that fear of, well, what does this mean financially if we kind of separate? On top of that, you're also going to see that there will still be a continuation of a lot of planets that are going to be going through your 7th house coming into conjunction with Saturn and Neptune. So Venus hitting Saturn and Neptune, the 6th, 7th, and 8th is one phase. The Sun coming into this, which might mean that your goals and relationships are changing, and you might be willing to kind of step away from a relationship if you feel like that person's not self-aware, if they're not healthy, if they've got habits, if they're angry. And then things get really colorful when you get to these transits. Venus hitting Chiron around the 25th of March, and you're going to have Mars coming into your 7th house. I mean, it's just, the relationship stuff seems like it needs to be dealt with. It's my interpretation, looking at like Mercury going retrograde with a conjunction to Mars, that you're secretly planning or maybe preparing or trying to figure out the way out. And the way out looks like you're doing your work in the 6th house. You're looking for a new job. You're potentially looking for some kind of support. You're trying to find ways to, have healthy habits and get into a schedule that can be beneficial for you, so you can kind of weather the storm or get your ducks in a row. So when you do pull the trigger, if there's going to be some big relational changes, you're going to be better prepared to do that. So health, habits, and also the job stuff seems to be most important. Saturn rules your home. So with Saturn going into your 7th house, you're now having to confront partners about either emotional coldness, home dynamics, issues within the home, and where you're kind of feeling like, yeah, this does not feel like a pleasant home environment. And like that's going to come up. You're going to see that in March. You're going to see that in April. If you use these Mars and Mercury transits to your advantage, with the trines to Jupiter, it can help you get employed. It can help you kind of align with a job that feels like it's therapeutic, it's helpful, it's something that you can really do to kind of, make yourself happy. Then you can get that in order and then start making some decisions about what you're going to do with the relationship stuff, which is going to come through like a freight train as soon as Mars starts coming into conjunction with Neptune. So you need to really, really be prepared for these transits. I would say April 8th through this conjunction, and there's likely going to be something that's going to happen because Saturn, Moon, Mars, Neptune, and Mercury are all going to sit here. And that triple conjunction is on your Chiron. So they either have wounds they have not healed, there is some frustration or anger that they're dealing with, there can be health problems that can be going on, there could be drinking problems that can be going on, And all of this is going to start to come into a trine with Jupiter. So it can enhance communication and, like, you know, if they're taking accountability, but it's also going to set you off because it's opposing Uranus in your sign. So I don't know how long some of the relational things have been going on, but to me, it looks like it's been obviously happening since about last year when Saturn and Neptune were going in and out of Aries. And then in the 8th house here, you're going to have to really identify, you know, what it is that you're willing to change. Also, a lot of this that I'm showing you, it's whole sign, but a lot of this is actually happening in a late Libra chart. So you may have some time before Saturn gets into your 7th house. You know, that's going to be another 2 years. I would say order of operations is focusing on your health and your work first and trying to get that in order so that way you can kind of better prepare for some changes. You may still have some relational changes that happen like over the fall, you know, when Venus goes retrograde in your money house, that's going to be more relationship oriented. And certainly Saturn dealing with your home and the eclipse that you just had in your 4th house featured the eclipse that was squaring Uranus and Taurus. So it was like, I want to change my home, but, you know, I'm in a relationship and I need to kind of change my money stuff. It can mean that if you're immediately needing to find another place to go, if you're wanting to kind of find like a roommate, or if you have somebody that's trying to kind of rent a space or something, you could find something. But your home was definitely going to dramatically change with Venus having been conjunct Pluto all year. It will retrograde back, it'll get close, but it's not going to sit exactly conjunct your Venus. So it's already done with the first hit, but you'll start to see this really amp up right around the October, November period. And most likely when Venus and Mercury go retrograde here, you're like trying to kind of like get out of something. So once again, you could delay the relationship changes to the fall. You could delay the relationship changes really until Saturn goes into your 7th house. I mean, that still may very well not come until, you know, next spring or next summer. But these things I don't think are going to go away. And with an eclipse that's going to be happening on your birthday, that's also just like yelling and screaming that there's supposed to be a big relational change. All Pisces are going through this, right? So you'll hear your Pisces horoscope, oh, you know, you're having a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. So there's a big relationship change happening, but that change is from you. Like Mercury is going retrograde over your sun. It's going retrograde over your natal Mercury. You have to be the one to decide what's actually going to make you happy. And this is also making some decisions that I think are going to allow you to start getting into work that's going to feel more creative or more fulfilling. And yeah, it's a lot. It's also squaring your natal moon. And it's also squaring your natal Jupiter. So it almost feels like you're like, where do I start? Start with getting into a routine and focusing on healthy habits and work. The relationship stuff you can figure out, but this is going to be best for you to kind of focus on those things first, so you can financially get what you need and start preparing so that way you can break away if that's necessary. Yeah, it's a lot. I can see that. Yeah, mutable squares are fucking messy. Especially when you have the eclipses come in, you know, because it starts with you. It's about you going, enough, I'm done. And a lot of Pisces placements are going to be like, I'm done with the relationship. The money stuff can be dealt with. That's the square to your moon. I think it's more about you going, how can I get creative and start finding ways? And whole sign, you know, it is in your 6th house. And, you know, because you have Venus that's in the 5th, I mean, this would be a year where you could start a side hustle. You could run a business that's going to be a service-oriented thing. You could work in hospitality. You could work with pets or animals or pet sitting or walking. There's a lot of things that you could do with this that would bring some extra cash or get you back into work before you really feel like you have the capabilities of kind of like being free, right? Hopefully that's helpful. Come back and give me some feedback. Let me know what happens with some of these transits. It looks like it's been colorful to say the least. Somebody says, there's a Pisces rising. I'm glad I'm alone. You're welcome. I've heard that from a lot of Pisces. All right. Who else do we have here? So we've got Kayla, Sasa, and Maritza. All right, let's see. Kayla came back for Saturn return reading. Good. Let's see what her chart says. Now we can get a better picture of, she was asking last week, what's going to happen with my Saturn return? All right, let's just double check this. September 25th, 96, 10:34 p.m. in Louisiana. She says, I'd really love to know how my Saturn return will affect me and how to prepare. Last year was a particularly hard year for me. I already lost friends and a relationship, but I'm in a really good place now and I feel better than ever.
What's up, Brian? I got your PayPal. No worries. I'll call you when you're coming up. Okay, my dear. Here is your Saturn. Okay? So you already started the Saturn return, but it has not happened yet. You're only going to have one hit. Okay? So sometimes it'll hit a couple times. You're only going to have one. So think of whatever got started last year as kind of like the precursor for your Saturn return. It's a little bit more tricky for you in my system using Placidus, because in Placidus, it does not make a perfectly even chart. So if you look at like whole sign charts, Gemini rising is like, oh, Aries is your 11th house. This is your friends. And these are the people that, you connect to and your goals and your community. But in Placidus, it's not perfect. It's messy. And we see something called interceptions. So this is when a house gets swallowed up by a sign. So if you see, you have your 11th house that starts with Pisces. And that's, I think, why when Saturn and Neptune went in there, you lost some friends, is because it represented kind of wrapping up certain friendships. And then your 12th house starts with Taurus. So it can suggest that when you go through Aries transits, things hit you out of left field. Interceptions are like blind spots. You don't necessarily see some of these things coming. That's number one. Number two, we have to take into consideration the houses that are intercepted and the signs that are intercepted. So Aries is generally action, passion, self, identity. Sometimes it could mean that things happen very quickly. It can also mean that it's something that we feel affects us personally. And then we look at Libra, which is relationships, partnerships. It could be romantic, it could be friends. It can also represent the balance, where Aries is me, Libra is we. So just knowing that you have these kind of interceptions in your 11th and in your 5th house, it tells me that sometimes you have a hard time seeing your place when it comes to your relationships and what other people need versus what you need. Okay, that's number one. And even without looking at your chart, this tells me you should have something very unusual about your Venus and about your Mars. So if we go and look at your Venus and your Mars, they're in the same sign. Good. They're also sextiling your Sun. Great. They're also trining your Saturn. Awesome. And your South Node. It's also trining your Pluto. So the fact that you have an interception and also that it's making nothing but really good aspects in this chart is like a chef's kiss. The only thing, and it's wide, but you do have a 10-degree opposition between Mars and Uranus. So it can mean that, yes, you have falling outs with friends. There was lots of changes with your goals, blah, 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 blah. But it will lead you to really focusing on communicating Mars about what makes me happy? What do I want? And being more creative and being more confident. That's very kind of like Leo, very charismatic. And fortunately, unfortunately, I've had a lot of clients who are born in 1996 who are going through their Saturn return. You guys, your aspects are very unusual because it's not just your Saturn return. It's also the fact that your Saturn's conjunct the South Node and Juno. So if you believe in past lives, because I do, this can suggest that in the past, there has been too many lifetimes where you've been alone, where you've been nomadic. It can also mean that you didn't want to settle down, right? You wanted to be independent, and it was conjunct Juno. So there was some karma revolving around commitment, marriage, partnership, and part of your Saturn return is saying, hey, we need to clear this because actually it's harder to be isolated and divided than it is to actually be in partnership. So in order to get you into divine harmony and partnership with people, Libra, it will actually remove people who you should not be partnering with, not be friends with, not be marrying, and it's just unfortunately the karma that's clearing, and you'll see it kind of clear throughout this next year, and then it will get easier. Your North Node is conjunct the Sun, so that means you're in between lives. That means that you're clearing out the karma in regards to friends and groups and community. You're integrating more of my joy, my creativity, what I love. So it's actually, I think, pretty good for you. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. And then on top of that, when you're going through the Saturn return, it's really peaking up now because obviously Saturn is direct. So you're kind of really in it. And I would say now through the better part of, let's say, because Neptune's there too. Now through the better part of, let's say, June, there is going to be a lot of changes. I would advise you, because Saturn wants you to do the work,
Get out there independently, try to make new friends, right? Go and join online groups, go and join fitness groups, things that are active. Go and join a hiking group, a meditation group, a yoga group. Hot yoga would be good. You have to start putting yourself out there and doing things alone and meeting other individuals who are also looking for community, who want to better themselves. If you can do that, it's going to help. Saturn's also connected to your career. It's also connected to travel. So some of these things might be materializing around that. And not only do you have Saturn and Neptune conjunct, okay, so Neptune's also dissolving old identities and friendships, but both Saturn and Neptune are opposing your sun. So a lot of like Libras are like, yeah, like a lot of relationship changes or going through breakups or divorces or separations. And what this is doing, I think, is really preparing you for when you start to see Jupiter, which rules your relationships, come into conjunction with Mars and Venus. You're going to have new friends that are all being seeded in the spring. You're going to travel more potentially over the summer. And I actually think you're going to meet somebody. And I think you're going to meet them through these new social connections sometime between August and probably right around November. Right? Oh, amazing. So she says she's on a journey. She's down 50 pounds. So you need to be around people who are inspiring and people who are active. That's very much the Saturn Neptune. And also, just the fact that Saturn and Jupiter are going to trine is like so good. Like things are going to get even better. And usually the first part of the Saturn return kind of sucks. And then you're one of the lucky few that's having a Saturn return with a Jupiter trine at the same time. Not everybody gets that. So it's going to be a nice aspect for you to be able to have that new commitment of your goals and your friends and your community. And then you're also going to see that it's going to help you like learn and maybe travel, move, you know, increase your communication. It'll be good, but it's hard to kind of see the forest through the trees. And it's possible that you might reconnect with friends or partners from past lives, or maybe even people who you haven't seen in a while when the South Node hits, when Saturn hits the South Node at a 7. So watch right around this time, right around, I would say like mid-April. There can still be like either somebody from the past coming back trying to be your friend or adding you on socials. It could also be a time where you're like, yeah, no, it's time for me to drop this other friendship. It's not supportive. And there could be a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, or you just decide that you're just like done with somebody and you don't want to communicate with them anymore. That can also be something that's like super karmic. Lean into the fact that it's trining your Venus and also your Mars. So it might just be about kind of communicating that it's like, look, it's nothing personal. It's just, this isn't working for me, you know, and having to kind of cut that. And Neptune will spend the next year or so in conjunction to your Saturn. So that's why I'm saying yoga, meditation, hypnosis groups, maybe doing something that involves water or water sports, art, you know, collective, or, you know, where there's people who are making art or people who are writing music, that would also be good. And watch for friends who have like escapist tendencies, or people who are drinking or drugging, or people who have bad habits. That can definitely be kind of coming up. And you'll see that there's people who are inspiring with Saturn, Neptune, and then there's people with Neptune on your Saturn that you're like, yeah, no, this person, like, they don't see their shit, you know, or they don't see that they're like self-sabotaging. And you may have to create boundaries with certain friends if you feel like it's not really healthy for you to kind of be around. So don't be trying to save people, right? That could be something else that can happen, where you're like so desperate for friends that you're like, oh, I'll fix them, I'll save them. Don't do that. Watch for where people are learning to kind of save themselves, right? It'll be good for you though, I think, especially once you're getting to the summertime. And I would say if you're going to go out and socialize, wear red. It's going to help you be seen. So whether you want to wear like red lipstick, you want to wear red clothes, things that are like bronze, or things that are even kind of like orange or kind of golden or maroon. And definitely things that are fitness oriented. That's the direction that I would go in. Good luck with your Saturn return. Come back and let me know how you're feeling in April, because that's when things definitely get a little spicy. All right, we have got Sasa and then Maritza. You're welcome. All right, so let's see what Sasa says. All right, so this is another Libra rising. We've got Libra risings tonight. All right, July 8th, 89 in Redmond at 1:30 p.m., but you live in Chicago now. Had so many health issues the past 2 years. Now you're restabilizing, wanting connection. Insight on when new love could come in and how it could manifest. I have 2 emotionally unavailable connections currently in situationships. Sounds about right for Libra risings right now. So one thing that I would say that you're going to want to focus on is the clearing out right now. Like, I have seen a lot of Libra risings now that, you know, Venus is going through the 6th house, that they're regaining their health and their health is getting better and it's coming back. I've also seen some Libra risings that can see a bit of like a relapse with unhealthy habits or with health stuff, particularly with your feet or your immune system or anything that deals with like your lymphatic system, your digestion and your habits, okay? Because you're not quite out of the weeds yet. With that being said, if you can focus on this stuff now, it's actually going to be very, very beneficial for you. Not just for your health and your emotions, but also for your career, because it's trining some stuff and it looks like you're going through some big career transits, maybe going back to work or feeling more inspired to work. And it's also going to be trining your money house. So whatever's happening the next like 3 or 4 weeks, get organized, focus on health, make that your priority. Love is definitely on the way. And I can see that because you just had an eclipse that was on the 17th of February. That was right on your North Node. It's a pretty big deal. Not often do you see these. You might see these a couple times in your life. It's the preparation for your nodal return, which you're going to be having, you know, sometime closer to this summer, when the transiting North Node is going to hit your natal North Node. And this happens every like 18 and a half years. So it's like a realignment with destiny, right? So if your North Node is in the 5th house of play, creativity, romance, having fun, children, self-expression, it is already signaling through the eclipse, hey, you know, somebody's getting ready to come in. Now, what you're going to find is that this will take anywhere from 6 to 18 months to materialize, but it is kind of foreshadowing that all of these 5th house things are getting ready to come in. So other than dating, I would be like, well, hobbies and things that you enjoy and stuff that's going to be more, you know, technology, science, astrology related might be part of it. And you're going to want to watch when planets hit that 28 degrees or so where we had the eclipse. So for example, Mars is there now. So you're like, yes, I want more relationship. I want more togetherness. It's your 7th house Lord. It's also about getting an astrology reading. Then you're going to see when Mars goes into your 7th house and Venus is in your 7th house. So that's going to kind of set up around the 3rd week of March. After the retrograde, that can be very relationship oriented. Although I would tell all of my Libras and Libra risings, you got to watch for Venus to come into conjunction with Saturn in this next week. It could mean that there is like a serious karmic relationship that appears, or a relationship with an older person, or a significant person who's like a mentor or like a therapist for you. And then you're also going to want to watch when Mars, which rules your 7th house, gets into your 7th house. That's where things get a little tricky. So there's not really a lot of clarity in relationships until these planets are going away from Saturn. So you're kind of in the clear after the 20th of April. And then we need to see what's going on with your natal Mars. Well, Saturn's going to trine that. So something's happening in April where somebody could show up. You just need to make sure that you see them clearly. And I think that for a lot of Libra risings, I've seen all of us kind of be like, well, you know, there's either problems in existing relationships, or it's people going, I don't want to deal with relationship issues, or I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. Saturn will say, now is the time. And when Saturn is merging with Mars, you may be meeting people who are moving, or it might be about somebody who's just recently moved or relocated. You will also potentially meet people who are going to be very consumed with their work and their career, or starting their own business. And I would say try to be patient with that, because that's something they're very dedicated to. But being that Saturn's going to trine your Venus, which rules relationships, and you, and also Mars, it looks like something very promising can be starting right around the end of April. You will also see when there's a positive transit to your natal Mars, this could also be a time that you can meet someone. So you're going to see Jupiter hit your Venus and your Mars, which is really good in July going into August. And it's in your 10th house. So check this out. Usually you meet your quote-unquote spouse or your partner wherever your 7th house Lord is. So if it's in the 10th house, and it's at an 11 conjunct Venus, which is you are either going to meet them right after they move, or you are going to meet them through work or through some change with your career. And you may end up doing some work together in some weird way. I don't know what you do professionally, but that seems to be part of it. And I would say end of April and also I would say July and August are going to be the peak times for relationship potential. Now look at this. The next eclipse that you're going to have is right on top of your Juno. So this can also indicate that it's calling in, you know, some kind of karmic relationship that's going to be long-term or marital. Juno is about the wife. And that there may be an introduction and you end up meeting somebody through a party or through some kind of friend or even through a coworker, Virgo. So whatever's going on with the changes with your health and your habits and also kind of preparing to kind of get better, be feeling better, feeling more productive, and then meeting someone, I think the best is actually yet to come. And you're going through some amazing transits that are connected to your career. It's not even just so much about relationships. I'm a Libra rising born in 89 too. And I've got, you know, all these retrogrades that are trining my second house and also Jupiter in my 10th house. And I'm just waiting for the right moment for like the next month or so to like start releasing some new stuff that I'm working on. Cause I know this is like top tier astrology. And because in your chart, your career leads you to your partner, as does your health right now. Those are the two things that I would be focused on the most. Watch what happens. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at what was happening in your life like 12 years ago. The last time that Jupiter hit your Mars, there was something going on relationship-wise. So this looks like it was in 2015. Did you meet somebody? Did you change jobs? Was there a prominent relationship that came in? Something happened there. Yes, obviously Uranus was in your 7th. So like relationships were not going to be like consistent. There was a lot of like on and off and people who were back and forth, and Uranus was trining your Mars too. So likely there was some third-party interference is what it looks like to me. Or somebody who just wanted to be friends and keep things casual. But this time around, I don't really see that being the case. That was not ideal timing, and you kind of got snaked out of a Jupiter transit on both your Mars and your Venus. But this time around, there's nothing that's kind of holding back. Now you're going to see that, you know, there's no Uranus interference. Now there's Saturn. So before, there was a lot of inconsistency. Now there's going to be somebody who's going to come in that's going to provide consistency. Could take as long as Saturn getting to about 14 degrees. But even then, look, it's trining Jupiter. So literally July, August, September, those are going to be some of the best times that you're going to see when relationship stuff is really going to be kind of setting up in your chart. And I also think it was going to be delayed because you have Mars and Venus in the 10th house. It means that your career and your relationships evolve. And the more that you're building on your career, the more your relationships evolve and vice versa. With a chart like this, once you get married, your status elevates and then your career is going to improve. So it's just as equally important to be looking for a relationship. And I think that eclipse that's happened on your North Node is really solidifying that. And it should make you feel like you want something that's like a little bit more serious too. The 5th house is you're not willing to settle, you want true love. And it can also be a relationship that can get you thinking about having children, right? Just got here in time for my reading. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful, but watch those particular time periods because that's when things are gonna get lit up. I need to start like a Libra rising emotional support group. we'll have a night just for you guys because you guys are like 70% of the people that come through here. It's so funny. All right, so we've got Sonia. Brian's got some synastry, and then we have Vanessa. All right, so let's see what Sonia has to say. 10/30, 1980. I was born in Ohio. Okay, let's pull that up. Sonia, did you have a particular question? Or do you just want to know about the eclipse? Oh, wow, right on your descendant. So she's a Pisces rising with the sun, and her moon is in Leo. Please do a support group. Yeah, we'll all argue over where we're gonna go out for dinner. That'll be fun. That's like the best thing to do with Libra risings. Nobody knows where they want to eat. Yes, you're still in the queue. You are. You're just a couple readings away. All right. No, really. Let's see what's important. All right. So probably the thing that piques my interest the most, not just because the eclipse is happening, but it's right on an angle of your chart. So I want you to think back to what was happening in September of last year, okay? So right around, I think it was like the 3rd week or so, there was a solar eclipse that was in Virgo, and it was very, very, very close to your Jupiter. That's your chart ruler. So it could have highlighted that there was going to be some changes and transformations happening in relationships. It could have also been things that touched on the 8th house topics like intimacy, vulnerability, inheritances, taxes, partners' money, joint money. All of that stuff was kind of getting set up. And it was starting to highlight with the Saturn-Neptune opposition in your rising sign, you know, what do I want and how attached or how entangled physically, emotionally, or financially do I want to be with other people? And I think that this is very similar to where you were pretty much February through April of last year. We had a Mercury retrograde in Pisces where you're reevaluating what you want in relationships. Do you want to be alone? Do you want to get back out there? Are you changing direction in a relationship? And then you also saw an eclipse that was in Virgo where you were starting to see things that were kind of falling apart or changing with the foundations of relationships. Welcome back. So it's like deja vu. And this one's got Pisces energy written all over it. It kind of steals the show from Virgo because it's at a 12. That's a Pisces degree about things dissolving or being emotional, sensitive, empathic, ruled by Mercury, retrograde in Pisces. And then obviously, this is something that's going to play out for a couple of weeks until the Mercury retrograde is over. Yes, issues with my ex and him lacking in support for our kids. I cut people off a lot. So there you go. So now that you're having this retrograde going on, in the midst of this, you know, it can mean that, you know, you're finally wrapping up that chapter of some karmic closures in relationships. Maybe you're healing now because Mercury and Venus are conjunct. It can certainly bring in new relationships. It can also bring in a lot of support. Like your 7th house could be working with a therapist, talking to an astrologer, you know, having a friend who you can kind of like rely on and talk about where you stand with relationships and that you have some hesitation. What's positive about this is that you do see Mercury, your relationship lord, and Venus in your sign. So it's drawing in people who can help you, and it's trining Jupiter. So it's saying people who can say, hey, how can we help you with your kids? 5th house. How can we help you when it comes to joy? How can we have fun? How can we have a little bit of like creative time or romantic time? So you'll see people who are just going to be like walking up to you and talking to you, or they're going to have an interest with you in some capacity. Exactly. Instead of relying on him, I started a side hustle for extra money. That's Jupiter in your 5th. It can also mean, because Saturn and Neptune are in your whole sign 2nd, so it's your money house, that you're feeling more self-sufficient, focusing on your money and stabilizing yourself rather than relying on partners' wealth, right? And like everybody always talks about, oh, Jupiter and Venus, you know, conjunct, you know, in the 8th house, like, you know, partners who provide and wealthy spouses or people who are very generous, but you have Saturn there. So you realize that it comes with like, everything comes with strings. Like there is like a sense of being like, yeah, he's given it, but there's going to be strings attached to it. And you don't want those strings. And whether it's like emotional or, you know, psychological or even like legal, there's still some stuff as to whether or not you're going to actually get what's owed to you. And I can see a very prominent period that's going to happen over the fall. And I know you didn't ask, but the Mercury and the Venus retrograde are going to go right over your sun. So it is going to represent that something is coming your way in the fall. Like if you are going through a situation where you're waiting for child support, you may actually have that go through and you may get it. You may also have a situation where there is like a windfall, or there could be a settlement or an insurance situation or an inheritance. Something is going to come your way. You're going to see this in October. So it is possible that if you do decide under these eclipses that you're like, look, I'm done with him, I'm supporting myself, I'm focusing on my kids, I'm focusing on my joy, I'm going to do my own thing. But if it materializes as, but by the same token, you know, if there is something that is owed to me, it may actually play out as a result of these eclipses between now and the fall, and then you may get something from it. Fated things just falling into my lap at the end of January, beginning of February. Yeah. So what I think is going to happen is watch for other people returning back to you with Mercury and Venus. They could be like, I should have treated you better, I should have valued you, or retrogrades are karmic. So it could mean there are people coming in who are now helping support you and kind of boost you up and make you feel valuable, make you feel important, make you feel like loved. And so now there's like all this cosmic blessing that's kind of coming in for the Pisces risings. So, you know, they're being rewarded from stepping away from something that was actually not a healthy dynamic, or something that was not actually going to be good for you in the long term. So now you get like all that like karmic goodness, right? With astrology, there's always something coming. I mean, the eclipses in the 12th house do represent this kind of shaking out of your old kind of identities, or maybe you're clearing out some stuff that's been bothering you subconsciously, or things that you haven't really like let go of, and it can put a lot of stress in the nervous system with squares to Uranus. So I would say walking, breathing exercises, journaling, all that stuff can be really great for you. And it can really help you start to kind of like regain your confidence, and also probably start doing some work where you have a local business, something that's requiring you to like run around a little bit, or something that's like a website, or something that you're doing that's like digital and online, which is also good because it seems like you're following your hunches and you're kind of listening to that. The other thing that I would say that just really seems interesting to me is like you're in your, Saturn opposition this year. So if you go back and you think about where you were at when you were 28, 29, 30, it looks like a lot of it was making commitments and doing things that are best for a relationship, or keeping a relationship together, or sacrifices that you made for other people. So now that you're in your Saturn opposition, 15 years later, you're reflecting on, did I give too much to other people? Have I been too tolerant, right? Saturn, especially people born in 1980 and 1980, 1981, you guys have Saturn and Jupiter in Libra, right? So you have exalted Saturn, where it's really diplomatic, really great with relationships. Jupiter means you can bring in, amazing relationships, but there's also, once again, karma there. So this year, while Saturn and Neptune oppose your Venus, your Jupiter, your Saturn, it's a lot of you going, I want to make my own way. And I don't want to feel like I'm tied down by another person. And I want to know that I can support myself. And that might mean that I'm keeping certain people at a safe distance. And you're going to have a hard time accepting generosity for people who have good intentions. And I would just say, be open to that people might come in just because they want to help you, or just because they're interested in what you have, or maybe they want to shower you with affection, or they want to pay you compliments. And I would say, don't build up walls. There is a way for you to do this and still maintain your independence. And it doesn't mean that you have to rely on somebody, but let other people in, because there can be a sense of being too independent and too unwilling to work with the right people. And then Jupiter going through your 5th house into your 6th house later this year is an expansion of a creative business, and something that's going to kind of take up a little bit more of your time, right? She says, yep, having babies put my career last. Priority with everyone but me, and a caretaker to my dad who is sick. The scorp in me side eyes nice people. I know what that's like. I'm a Scorpio, Sun and Mercury too. But there's some really good stuff that's going to happen here. And I would say especially some changes with your creative business in like June, July, and August. And then some kind of big financial shift is going to be happening in the fall. So just make a mental note of that when the dust starts to settle and we're getting into the summertime, things are going to expand, but there's going to be some really wild things. Go back and think about what happened in the fall of 2018, because that's the last time we had a Venus retrograde in this part of your chart. And in the 8th house, it's usually about some kind of gains that's coming from someone else. Sometimes it's legal, but it's definitely going to be very prominent because it starts its retrograde right on your sun, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you, Sonia. Lots of Pisces risings I've been talking to that are just like finally getting their groove back. So it's nice to see them gaining more confidence in the process of some of the stuff that they're building and kind of working on. All right, let's see, who else do I have here? I've got Brian's got a synastry, Vanessa got in there, Mayad is in here. So you guys are all next. You're welcome. Pedro says, your live streams feel more like a real course full of content. Yeah, I teach classes too. I teach astrology. I'm teaching an advanced astrology class right now. I've done, this is the 3rd one, but my content for all my videos, I try to show you guys how to make sense of some of the aspects so you can learn how to do it. So many astrologers, they just want to make predictions, but they don't want to tell you where it's coming from. And I never understood that, but all right, so let's pull up Brian's info. Brian's got some dilemmas going on here. Brian, you don't by any chance know her birth time, do you? I know you didn't put it in there, so I figured I would ask. I'm just going to put her sun on the ascendant if you don't know. All right, so we've got Brian here. And Brian is January 3rd, 91, 7:22 p.m. in Elmhurst, Illinois. And he says, my ex is dragging her feet in divorce that started in November of 25. She seems to get away with everything she shouldn't be doing during the process. Got some good news today. Will the tide turn soon? She's 121.95 in Missouri. Let's see. No birth time. She's a twin. Her brother was born 7 minutes before her. All right. So let's look at your chart first. So basically for you as a Leo rising, you just had this solar eclipse in the 7th house on the 17th. So that means where I can see where you've had a delay or a drag, you know, that's been kind of going on in the 7th house. Now things are going to begin to move forward. So now it's going to be suggesting that there's going to be some big changes in regards to relationship dynamics because that solar eclipse kicked it off. And it can mean that you're clearing things out and now there's more speeding up and momentum because Mars was there. The challenge is it was an eclipse, and that eclipse was squaring Uranus, so it was definitely saying, hey, there was going to be a pretty dramatic status change, so check, divorce, Uranus is pretty common for that. It was squaring your Mars, which means there seems to be some kind of debate potentially over around home or property. So I wonder if there's like a house in the mix or if family is getting involved in this process in some way, which has been delaying things or now speeding things up. And it was in opposition to your moon. So this lit your chart up like a Christmas tree where you're like, look, I need to see some action on the relationship, you know, divorce front. So that way I can get the show on the road and feel like I have a better handle of what to kind of expect, especially when it comes to, you know, managing your career, managing your sanity with the squares to Mars and your moon, and figuring out the situation with either a home or a living situation. So I don't know if you're in limbo with that, or if you guys own a house, or if there's money that's somehow kind of tied up in property, or if family's getting involved, but that's how I read it. Solar eclipses start the process. So we need to see something going on with Saturn or Uranus for there to be something positive that's going to change in regards to this relationship. Well, boo-boo, you got Saturn and Venus and the North Node all in your 6th house. It's pretty obvious that there was probably going to be a divorce. Saturn in the 6th house is pretty common for that. Venus in the 6th house is pretty common for that. But you've got Venus in the same sign as Saturn and Uranus. So check, check, check. So what we need to see is when planets are coming into conjunction like with Saturn. So that's going to happen in your 9th house, which represents legal matters. So now Saturn has woken up. It's moving away from Neptune, which means you're probably going to see legal stuff that's going to be progressing pretty quickly. Watch for when the sun is coming into conjunction with Saturn or Venus is coming into conjunction with Saturn for some like, kind of timely meetings or court dates, or potentially her having to take some kind of responsibility for documents, communication, anything that deals with legal documents. That really starts up around the 8th of March. And then you are the sun. So you will see the sun come into conjunction with Saturn. So there is some meeting that's coming anywhere from the 18th of March, I would say, to the 25th. And then you're going to see Mars go into the 9th house, and that's probably about going to court. And that looks like that's setting up in mid-April. Endings of relationships are usually connected to the 6th house because it means that, you know, it's the ending or the 12th house to the 7th. So the fact that you're going to have your 6th house lord in the 9th means you're legally ending things, and things should actually be progressing pretty quickly. The only challenge that I see is that it's really about her communicating, whether or not she agrees to things, if she signs things, and you guys are going through in March a Mercury retrograde in your 8th. So there is some negotiation that's going on, or trying to find a way to be like, hey, can we come to, you know, an agreement? Can we work together? And you're going to see, as soon as this retrograde comes into conjunction with the sun, it's going to be about whether or not you guys can actually come to some kind of agreement. And I think that's going to be around, once again, 6th, 7th, 8th of March. She wants to stay at home, trad wife who became, an Amber Heard type feminist over the course of 6 weeks. Okay. Yikes. Well, let's look at her chart. I mean, she's going through the Pluto transits. That's partially why that's happening. So let's go back. So look at her astrology. So, we don't know her time that she was born. 8 years together, wasn't interested at all in trying to work it out. I'm going to have to wear a body cam around her when custody exchanges finally happen. So we know that she's an Aquarius sun, and the sun rules her 7th house, just by nature. We don't know the ascendant. Over the last year, Pluto's been hitting her sun, which means there has been this major transformation. It can feel like a crisis. It can also feel like there is this toxic kind of relationship that's kind of going on. And like the fact that Pluto's hitting the sun means that it's authority issues or issues in regards to control or who's in control when it comes to relationships and also like parenting and stuff too. So I could see that. I think a lot of Aquariuses are experiencing that, where there's a huge kind of dynamic shifting in relationships. The other thing is that at the beginning of, I think it was like, was it sometime in mid-January? We saw like Pluto and Mars and a bunch of planets come into conjunction in Aquarius. Let's go back. That's probably when there was some stuff that was really getting kind of nasty. So it looks like it was happening around, yeah, like late January. And then there was another one that was happening here in November. And that's when Mars started coming into a square with Pluto. So October of last year, January of this year is when you saw really hard aspects between Mars and Pluto. So now Mars and Pluto have come together in January, and now it's starting the new cycle. When is a relationship going to end? You can see some turning points when we have a full moon. So let's go and look at that. Connected to her 7th, so that was last month. And then there's going to be another one that's more in regards to legal stuff or court, which is going to be around early April. And then you're going to see this one that's going to be happening here. And when the full moon happens in Aquarius and it's opposing Jupiter and the sun, it can literally mean that she's potentially going through a bit of a crisis because something may not be going in her favor in regards to childcare or scheduling or timing. And the moon Pluto means that Aquarius placements are going to basically be like, I don't feel like I have as much control, especially over scheduling and timing. And then the sun and Jupiter opposing her does seem to indicate that this could potentially be a situation where a partner is having a little bit more say in a matter, especially in regards to children, right, Leo? So it will take time to see this stuff kind of play out, but I attribute a lot of this to just Pluto hitting her sun and trining her moon, right? It fell apart in October through November. It was just bang on with the Pluto transits. So if we put your guys' planets together and we look at this and how this came to be, you have a lot of aspects that indicate that there was going to be a significant connection and commitment. Like Mars on the moon, lots of chemistry, having kids, having family. Jupiter, Venus in your 5th house, children, romance, getting married. Mercury on your descendant, commitment, communication. Something has to be going on outside of just her transits. There has to be something going on in the composite chart. And because we don't know her exact time, I can't give you the exact ascendant, but we can look at the midpoint planets, which are going to be pretty accurate. And if we look at just the planets, together you guys are a Capricorn sun. It looks like your moon is in Virgo. Boom, that's where the eclipse is going to be. And because it's going to be in Virgo, this is 9 houses away from your sun in Capricorn. That means the eclipse is about to relay just what's going to start happening in regards to your guys' like legal stuff. Like it's going to start very abruptly, like right after you have the eclipse, pretty much March into April is when you're going to see this stuff take place. Why did you guys not work, right? You've got sun trine moon, that's pretty nice, but you've also got Venus that's very close to Uranus and Neptune. That may not have been long-term. You've got Mars and Venus in opposition. Ouch. Mars in opposition to the sun. That can also mean that there's just like a lot of conflicts of ego. And it's Capricorn Cancer. So it literally means that, one person has one kind of philosophy about how they want to have, a family and they want to work. And then the other person wants to, do something that's more, personal and like relating to their emotions and their own needs. Like they're not seeing eye to eye. That's a really hard opposition to have in a marriage chart. And that's all further squared by Jupiter. So it was saying that there was going to be some kind of either legal issues, there was going to be some conflict over how you guys navigate the home and family and also kind of like the career perspective. Once again, don't know the ascendant, but I think this year watching Saturn and Aries go through the 4th house to the sun and square Venus, it means that parties are going to be living in different places. They're going to be kind of getting situated or dealing with where home is going to be over the spring. And you're going to see probably in June going into July, when you have retrogrades in Cancer, is going to be the time where you guys are going to start being like, okay, can we wrap this up? And that's going to be right around here, where Mercury is going to retrograde right over your Mars, and it's going to oppose all this Capricorn. Let me tell you something. The next month or so is like some of the best times to try to negotiate. And if you guys cannot find a mediator or find a middle ground, things can be very difficult to kind of mediate over the summertime. June and July looks like it's going to be a lot more difficult to kind of deal with. So I don't know if you guys have already have a custody order or an agreement or something that you've agreed upon, or if that's going to be determined during the divorce proceedings. And then you're also going to see that this is going to bring up some drama here when you have Mars starting to come into opposition with your planets in Capricorn. So when you talk about like they're like needing to wear like a security camera or something about September into October looks like it could actually be pretty gnarly, because Mars will oppose the sun and it's going to square Saturn. So it could be things like, you know, somebody being like, oh, you can't physically drop the kids off at my home, or, you know, I don't want you being within X amount of, you know, feet of my property, like that kind of stuff. So be mindful, maybe make sure that you have other people that can like maybe be there, that's family, to bear witness to the exchanges and things, because that can get a little gnarly in the fall. September in particular is when that looks difficult. It's hard to say not knowing the time of when she was born, but just going off of your chart, I think it's pretty safe to say that when this turns into a full moon in Aquarius in 6 months' time, that's when you're going to start to see the conclusion and the completion, and there it is, right along your descendant in July. And then you're also going to see your natal Saturn is not quite squaring Saturn, and it will trine Jupiter. So it's almost looking like it could probably by the end of summer be just about done. She was the best wife, would have taken care of her until old age, would have done anything to avoid this. She started getting really hooked on Adderall, and she's more geek up than the Pluto transits. And when Pluto's on your sun, like it's not just a personal or an identity crisis. Sometimes it can be like addictions and like other things that can kind of like, you know, take us to a dark place. And I'm sorry to hear that. That's a bummer. I mean, obviously, you know, Aquarius on the descendant as a Leo rising, you'll have a lot of crazy experiences in relationships because Uranus rules your 7th house. So it means that you can have people that can be kind of erratic or kind of like Aquarian or all over the place. And talk to any Leo rising, they'll tell you, especially now that the eclipses have started, now they're really seeing their partners that are acting kind of weird. But I don't know if you've ever had an astrology reading before, but if we look at your wife, or at least the first one, if we look at your wife, you have Uranus, which rules your 7th house, and it's connected to the stellium of planets in the 6th. That means you are going to wind up with somebody who is either going to be a workaholic, a neat freak, somebody who is going to have a whole lot of like hidden subconscious like habits and patterns that are kind of ingrained in her. And also with Uranus very close to the sun, it was saying that like there was going to be a sense of you having to confront her about some of the habits that she was having and being like, look, this is not going to work. And to me, because this is all in opposition to your Chiron in Cancer, which is about kind of like wounds that might be connected to like mother figures or women, it was going to trigger something for you where it wasn't even so much about like, can I be with her, but it's about you going, is this healthy to be around, right? Like, can I be around this? Can I have my kids around this? And it brings up like a lot of safety and security issues where if you have, you know, abandonment issues with one of your parents, I mean, your moon squares your Mars and your Pluto. So I don't know if you've seen like parents who are kind of like extreme with their habits or kind of manic or, you know, some personality disorders. It brings up a lot of like childhood issues and other issues that you dealt with for a very long time or you've experienced or you've seen in some capacity. So it's bringing up that wound right now as Jupiter is kind of going through your 12th house, opposing all of these planets. So it's clearing karma, and maybe to some extent there's like a version of you now as an adult that you're able to say, yeah, no, not on my watch. I dealt with this, or I saw this when I was younger, or I've experienced addiction. Because it comes through your chart a bit. Sun, Neptune, Uranus. I don't know if there was a lot of instability with your dad or your moon square Pluto. If there was like mom emotionally overreacting to things and being very intense because, you know, she potentially was around somebody who had health issues or addiction issues. But this is coming up because it's trying to get you to purge some of these unhealthy relationship habits in relationships. So I'm sorry to hear that that happened. Obviously, that's a bummer, but I do think you're going to start to see the turning point right around the end of summer, and watch for that full moon in Aquarius. That's when you're really going to start to see it change. Fingers crossed that you guys are able to do this prior to getting to the fall, because once you get into the fall and you start seeing like Chiron go into Taurus, and it's going to oppose Jupiter, it's going to square Jupiter and also Pluto, things are going to become very, very, very challenging for you. So you want to make sure you get all of the decisions that are kind of situated in terms of what the divorce, agreement's going to be, what the, child, kind of custody thing is going to look like, because I think family's going to have to get involved in some capacity later in the fall if things aren't going very well. I'm writing a book on American Civil War the past few years, and she had the same birthday as my hero, Stonewall Jackson, and I thought it was a sign from the heavens. Well, you love who you love. You live and you learn. But in your chart, I mean, you were going to have one marriage that you were going to burn. The second one is Mars, which is in your 10th house. So that means that when there is a pretty dramatic change that's going to be happening with your career, and also potentially publishing, because Mars rules publishing, that it may lead you to another relationship. So that one will drive your ex-wife crazy because it's squaring your moon. But, I think there's better things to come, especially when you start looking at Saturn going into your 9th house. Great for publishing, great for traveling, great for research and anything where you want to kind of talk about history, but it does have an influence on what's going to happen with another relationship. Hopefully that's helpful. Come back and let me know with the timing, and I hope that you guys can kind of keep the peace, Yeah, that's a bummer, especially when you think about your kids. That's Jupiter, and you've got Jupiter in your 12th house, and it's opposing your descendant. But you're getting ready to have your Jupiter return, and you're also going to have Saturn in your 9th house trining Jupiter, which means likely there's going to be some kind of like custody dispute, or there's going to be a decision that's going to be made that most likely will allow you to reunite with your kid. Especially with Saturn. Saturn could be a judgment. So Saturn trining that is going to really start to kind of get that flowing, especially at the end of March going into April. I would assume, especially around the eclipse that's happening on your ascendant, really close to your Jupiter return, there's a lot more time with your kid or kids, especially over the summertime. All right, so let's see. We've got Vanessa is next, and then we've got Mayad, and then we've got Christian. Come on, PayPal, you can do it. It's tired. And then we've got Adriana. All right, so let's see what Vanessa has to say. You're welcome. Cheaper than your lawyer. Certainly not as qualified. All right, Vanessa says 113.91. Oops, wrong Vanessa. There we go. Cancer rising. All right, she says, leaving my question in YouTube chat. Uh-oh, so I gotta go find it. Hold on. Let's see. Vanessa, oh, there you are. Hey, it's Vanessa. Wondering how this eclipse is going to play out. I have to get oral surgery ASAP, but I also have my elopement dinner on 4/19. My dreams have been so vivid lately. Wondering about that similar case during the last eclipse season. During the last time my sister passed and I got married 5 days later. Unfortunately, learned some harsh secrets. Thank you so much. All right. So I would say, obviously, I'm sorry to hear about what happened the last time with your sister. That's a bummer. The eclipses in Virgo have been in your 3rd house. So you had one here in March of 2025, South Node eclipse. Something had to be going on with the sun. Saturn was conjunct the sun, so that was not fortuitous for the health of your sister. And then you had another one here in September of 2025, where you had a critical 29-degree solar eclipse in opposition to Saturn. Also not great for health of sister. And a lot of it's been bringing up kind of like third house, communication, siblings, traveling, and then ninth house is ceremonies, what you're learning, what you believe in. Like the ninth house can very much be like getting married, eloping, right? That type of stuff. Changes to your status too. It's in your 10th house. Can you see some similarities with this one? Yes. And the reason being is because this is very, very similar to the cycle that we had last spring. Lunar eclipse in Virgo, emotional clearing. Obviously, the oppositions to Pisces is a lot of changes with dreams. And in this case, you're going to have Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is your dreams, conjunct Venus. So it can mean that there is something that's revealed to you in a dream. That could be a change with your travel, a change with your belief system, a change with your job. Like there's something very almost like precognitive about some of these dreams that you're having. So write them down because some of them can be literal. Now, these eclipses, though, by sign, they are trining stuff in your 7th house. So it is saying that there is the opportunity to, connect with family, make changes emotionally, make changes in the home, and then boom, focusing on relationship and marriage because it's trining Juno and also Uranus, kind of Neptune too. That can also spark some dream stuff as well. And you're going to see that the Mercury retrograde is happening in your 10th house. So it's changes to your status, changes with work, but it's your whole sign 9th. So it can mean there are some potential changes going on with your travel plans or things that you don't really see coming or like delays with your travels. Dealing with oral surgery is more Mars. The fact that Mercury is going to retrograde conjunct Mars means that you're debating whether or not you're changing your date for your plans for your dinner, or if you're potentially trying to quickly get the surgery and still travel. And I would say be very selective with when you want to do this stuff. Mars is not strong when it's in Pisces. However, if it's forming an aspect to your natal Saturn, right? Like I don't know how long you know that you needed to do this, but in a perfect world, you were actually getting this done in early to mid-January. Had you done it then, that would have been a really good time to do it. You can't now. So now we move forward and we look at Mars starting to come into a trine with your ascendant. And the moon rules your mouth. And Mars is going to be about cutting. So we want to see something like, are you getting something removed or are you getting something that's going to be, like what kind of surgery is it that you're doing? Like is it an extraction? Are you doing like a gum graft? Are you adding something or removing something? That's going to help me determine what's going to be a better time for you to do this. Honeymoon planned at the end of May. Extractions. Okay. So if you're removing something, and I don't have a calendar in front of me, so you might want to look at one, I would say doing this around March 13th is not necessarily a bad idea. Really the 12th or the 13th. Like, yes, Mercury is retrograde, but it means that you're going to have to take time away to kind of rest and deal with this surgery. But I like to do dental stuff when the moon's in Capricorn because it deals with the teeth, the skin, and the bones. And the moon is going to sextile Mars, which is good for surgery. It's going over your 8th house Lord, and it's a wanting moon. So it means you'll have like less bruising, you'll have less swelling. And you're also going to be seeing that with the moon making a sextile to the sun, you're going to have pretty good aspects. So once again, 12th, 13th would probably be one of the days that I would consider doing it. If you can't do it then another option is you wait until the Mercury-Mars stuff is over. You look at when Mars starts coming into a sextile with your Saturn, and you could do this when the moon is in Scorpio. So like April 4th, April 5th. Actually, no, I take that back. April 4th. So with the moon sextile Saturn and trining Mars, this could be a time that you could do it. And then you have a similar aspect here. Although I'm not crazy about Mars conjunct Neptune. So now we're really pushing it into April. And then there are going to be some times that I would not recommend surgery. Mercury, Saturn, Mars, all conjunct. I wouldn't do that. So now you're having to wait until Mars is breaking away from Saturn, and now you're getting into the end of April. So I would be using some of the dates that I gave you and trying to do it right around then. But very likely the eclipse is just having you clear out stuff more emotionally, or things that deal with like your home and your family. And I'd be watching the relationships that you have with women. So like sisters, mothers, aunts. And with Mercury retrograde, it means that people are going to be reconnecting with you and talking to you about traveling or coming to your event or connecting with you guys to kind of celebrate your union. So I don't think it's going to be as harsh as what we've seen with some of the other ones, but anything goes with eclipses. You must have some like midpoints or something over there. There's got to be something that's getting kind of triggered, because usually Virgo eclipses are pretty friendly. For somebody who has this much like Capricorn and Taurus in your chart. So you may have certain points or other asteroids there that are kind of triggering it, but it is a cycle that's like once in an 18, 19 year period where, you know, sometimes there can be a loss of family or cousins or siblings that can kind of happen. So I don't necessarily foresee that again, but I think that I would just kind of keep on the lookout for what can happen with the next eclipse. There will be another one that's going to be next year that's going to be a little bit more gnarly, and that is definitely going to be one with like Mars retrograde, so it'll be early 2027. That may be a little bit more tricky as Pluto is coming up on your Venus. That might be relating to like other family members. Definitely problematic relationship with my dad. He's a Virgo. Well, and all the Virgos are having like, you know, the retrogrades in their opposite sign, and they had a lot of, you know, retrogrades over the winter that was happening over the holidays in the 4th house. So a lot of Virgos are having a difficult time, rightfully so, with the South Node going through their sign, because they're dealing with health issues, and they're also having to let go of control, and they're having to recognize that some of their kind of tendencies and their demeanor is kind of isolating themselves from people a little bit. And so they're gonna be working through that. And this is actually a really good eclipse to be able to reconnect with people in their lives. So you might actually see a different side of him, or if your parents are together, it might be about their relationship and like what's kind of changing with their relationship dynamic, or reconnecting with family that he hasn't seen in a little while. And it also could be just the year that you're in. I mean, you're in a Gemini mercurial year. So that's part of this. Until you get into your birthday in March, you're in a 12th house year. So the 12th house represents endings and conclusions, Gemini, siblings, or feeling like you're losing your mind. And this is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's in your 6th. So there's Mercury conjunct the moon, critical health issues with sisters or siblings. It can also mean that it's really forcing you to come to terms with what is and what is not healthy emotionally. And changes maybe with your work or your productivity habits. 29 degrees are always critical. They call these the destroyer degrees, and your Mercury is in its opposite sign. So all of those things could be kind of indicating 1, 2, 3, 4, end of life for sibling in this last year, major changes in terms of your mindset and also your work. And the Mercury retrogrades have kind of exacerbated this. They've made it a little bit more difficult. So, you know, you're going to want to watch, let's see, when is that going to be over? So that's going to be basically this year. So for the beginnings of this, it'll first start in Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And that's now until kind of like mid-March. And then you're going to have the next one that's going to be in Cancer. That's going to be June into July. So you have to watch your health and your habits then. And then you'll have another one that's going to be in Scorpio, and that's going to be in your whole sign 5th house. And that could potentially be a pregnancy. It could be with Mercury being conjunct the moon, but it could also be just some changes to like your hobbies and stuff. But if you listen to astrological forecasts, definitely pay attention to what's going to happen with like the Mercury retrogrades. They're going to bring a lot more, I think, working through some subconscious things, and how you communicate and talk about your feelings, especially with family, is going to be a huge, huge part of it. Hopefully that was helpful. You got some good election dates for being able to get those extractions. All right, we have Mayad. Am I saying that right? And then we've got Christian and Adriana. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. All right, we've got a Capricorn rising. Let's see. There we go. Cap rising with moon in Pisces and the sun is in Scorpio. All right, let's see what she says. Recently bought my own property. I'd like to know how the up and coming transits are impacting my chart in relationship or career. Sending you much love. Well, thank you. What a good manifestation for Saturn and Neptune coming into, conjunction in Aries. Even though you're a later degree Capricorn rising, for a lot of Capricorns, it's like, oh, I'm getting my new home or I'm moving to a new space, right? So you got a kind of like a leg up on that. But career stuff is always going to be what's going on for you with Mars. And anything that's going on with relationships is going to be more your 7th house. That's going to be your moon. There's two big things that stick out for me. Is that Mercury starts its retrograde shadow at 8 degrees, and then it's going to retrograde back over your moon at 8 degrees. Moon is relationships. Moon can be therapists, partners. It can also be about relationships with family. And Mercury is going to be about things that you have to work on or things that you have to fix or like upgrades that you're making. So the fact that Mercury is going to retrograde over your moon means that you may be looking for people to kind of give you guidance on, oh, how do I furnish? How do I style? What do I need to be updating? The moon is at an 8, so it's about transformations that you're making to the home. Particularly, it can be furniture, stuff in the kitchen, things that deal with lighting. Plumbing is something that you're going to want to watch for. And whether or not there is going to be cheap or like reasonable kind of fixes. And so whenever I see 8s, it can cost us money to fix things, or it can be issues with plumbing or like with water or things that are kind of connecting to sewage. I know it sounds gross, but I would really watch these dates because you're going to see that this is going to get lit up like a Christmas tree. So let's see which one's going to hit first. When the North Node hits your moon, it was like a destined time for you to be able to be like, yes, I've gotten my home and now I have things that I want to change, and you're going to start feeling like you want to spend money on stuff. Pisces can be a time where you can get some good deals where stuff's on sale, or you can look at like furniture places that has overstocks, or like even estate sales can be a good idea with this retrograde. Then you're going to be feeling like you want to make some impulsive purchases around the 11th and the 12th. And I would say just make sure that it's going to fit. Measure everything, because some things you will not be able to take back, or you're going to get things that are going to be on sale or their final sale. And you're going to like buy something and then be like, oh, it's the wrong color. Oh, it's the wrong thing. Like double and triple check everything before you buy it. And my advice would be wait until Mercury is back on your moon and it's direct, and you can start making the purchases for things from March 20th on. I know I can see you impulsively, you want to get everything organized, you want to get it together. If you rush through these things, you're going to pay more money than you should, and there's also going to be some kind of a mistake with something that you're going to order. So try to hold off to make the bigger purchases until closer to about the 20th. And if you want to talk to an interior designer, if you want to get other people's opinions, if you want to bring in family, or if you have like a mom or a sister who's giving you their feedback. Pisces can also be about like fountains, things that are going to be about changing faucets, things that are connected to sinks, maybe even like upgrading mirrors or like glass. That can be Pisces as well. But you're better off doing this right after the new moon once Mercury is direct. Also, the moon rules relationships. So it means that your relationships to coworkers, potentially dating, relationships with people who might be traveling. So you meet people who are traveling, or you connect with somebody who's like, oh, I'm only in town for like, a couple of days, I'll be back. Watch for those things. And it might mean that you're basically trying to say to somebody, I just recently moved, and it looks like right after you move, that's when your relationships change. So the fact that you moved and got into a new home base is good. And all of this Pisces stuff is in your money house. So it's about, what am I spending? What do I value? Maybe your budget has changed now because you're like, okay, I own a home, and like, there's a lot of expenses going on. So a lot of it's about tapering, kind of your expenses and managing a budget. And you're going to see all of this stuff trining Venus, which is good for your career. And also you're going to see planets towards the end of Pisces season, at the end of March, start trining your sun. I kind of see this as that you've been working really hard, and like I can see as a 10th house person, you're very career kind of driven. And now you're going, okay, now I can start kind of deploying some of this money that I've been working hard for towards something that I really value. And if your moon's in the second house, you want a home, and also you want a relationship. The relationship stuff is getting worked out where you have the opportunity to meet people and have more heart-to-heart conversations about your values and what you want and what's important. But I actually think that as soon as Jupiter gets into your 7th house, it's going to be more relationship oriented. So pretty much like May, June, and then there's going to be a retrograde in July where something about the month of July looks more prominent for relationship stuff. And usually when you have the North Node conjunct your moon, that'll bring a partner in too. So once you get into like June or July, that's more relationship oriented. And then you will see an eclipse that's going to be conjunct your moon right around here, the end of August. And by then you'll feel like the house is pretty much the way that you want it. You'll probably be doing a little bit every couple of weeks, you know, to try to get everything in its place and make sure that everything's designed. So try to aim for the end of summer to have everything the way that you want it. And when that eclipse comes in, it's going to be trining Mars in your whole sign 7th. So there's definitely some home fulfillment, relationship fulfillment going on as well. And you're one of those people that's going to have Jupiter that's going to be in your relationship house all year. So it's going to be here pretty much all the way until like next summer. So the times where planets are going through the water houses, so Cancer and Scorpio, so June, July, October, November is going to be more prominent for relationships. And it looks like this year you're in an annual perfection year 40. So this is a 5th house year, which is about love and meeting people and connecting with people. And your natal Venus, which is your 5th house Lord whole sign, is in the 11th. So it's saying that if you want to connect with people, you have to go where the people are. You have to socialize, go to parties, collaborate, go to dinners. You have to network, that kind of stuff. And I would say, you know, having a solid group of friends and being able to network and not just work will allow you to connect with other people and potentially meet some significant partners. Usually 40 is like a big turning point where if you haven't settled into that relationship, you know, you may, or you meet somebody who you want to settle down with or get married with, you know, by about 42. It can also be a year where you meet younger people or potentially you meet people who make you start thinking about whether or not you want to have kids. So that can kind of come up for you as well. But one of the best things you could have done was buy a house. Because having that moon at an 8 in your 2nd house means the willingness to kind of invest into property and home automatically, karmically increases the odds of a relationship coming in. And it's not about like you meeting someone. It's more about because you have put all of your energy into creating that home base that you could then merge with another person and it could become ours. It's going to allow the relationship flow to happen better. And Uranus in opposition to your sun, it's a lot of like inconsistency and back and forth with men. So it can be father figures, brothers, you know, people that you're dating. You have to remember the sun represents other people's resources. So it could be things like, oh, I took out a mortgage. I've never done that before, you know, or there can be sudden windfalls or where you're kind of gaining money or that you could be awarded money or, you know, you inherit something. It's not fun transit. I went through that transit. It's more active for you because it's in an angular house, but it's a lot of just feeling on edge. And it hasn't just been Saturn. It hasn't just been Uranus in opposition to your sun. It's been opposing Saturn. That's your chart ruler. So notice all the outer planets are at the bottom part of your chart. So you're used to being out in the world, working, you know, hustling, and it's like, boom, now Saturn's coming into the bottom part of your chart. You want to nest, you want to focus on your home. Uranus is getting ready to go into your 5th house where you want more playtime, you want to date. Everything is shifting to the bottom part of your chart. The only thing that's going to be at the top part of your chart that's like a heavy hitter is Jupiter. So you're getting the home ready, and then relationships are going to start to kind of evolve from that. So it's going to get exciting. There's some big status or kind of career changes that are going to be happening in the fall. For right now, the Uranus-Sun transit is just about done, but I can see you're a real stickler for kind of committing to your career and your like work and your reputation, and Uranus is basically saying, no, let's kind of switch things up. Let's have new hobbies. Let's stay home. You know, let's focus on gardening and things that are fun and stuff that we can do that's like a little bit more flexible. And it's not wanting you to stay super committed to the idea of being out in the office. It wants you to be doing things that are more like domestic. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Who am I seeing here? Maritza. No, we did. I think we did yours, babe. Did we? Oh no, I see you. I'm sorry I didn't put you in my list. Thank you for saying that. Okay, I've got you here.
Let me add you here. So I'll actually put you before Kristen. It's funny because I had your chart up too. I was looking at it. You're welcome. All right, let's look at Maritza. She was so patient. Maritza. There she is. Make sure that this is the right one. In the Bronx. There she is. All right. Aries rising. Sun in Virgo. And you've got the moon that's in Leo. She says, let's see, any help in navigating these transits with the eclipses, with health, work, or love, feeling overwhelmed, confused, and lost. I don't know who to trust with my heart and what to do for work or financial increase, or if my body will ever regain stamina. I'm trying. All right. So let's start with what's most important and what's kind of getting hit in your chart first. Probably, I would assume, part of what's going on is you're really feeling the effects of Chiron starting to come into conjunction with your ascendant, right? So you don't see it now, but it is coming. And over the next couple of months, you're going to see Chiron come into conjunction with your ascendant. And that really gets lit up mid-April, I would say through about June, July. Then it'll go into Taurus briefly, then it's going to go back into Aries, and that'll go back into your 12th house in October, and then it's going to come back again, and it's going to sit in your first house next year. So your first bit of homework is to go and learn about Chiron conjunct the ascendant. I would start there. The ascendant is the body, it's your appearance, it's your identity, and it's really pushing you to basically be like, okay, I have to really show up and focus on healing myself right now. And usually Aries can mean that there's allergies, there's sinus issues, there's headaches, there's inflammation. And then on top of that, right, you also have Saturn and Neptune that have also got into Aries. Now you're a late degree Aries rising. So really I'd be more so focused on the Chiron transit on and off for like the next year. And this is about learning to heal the self. And because it's going to hit that critical 29 degrees, you're like, oh my gosh, can I do it? And you have to be really gentle with yourself. And I would say, infrared saunas, sunshine, anti-inflammatory diets, things that are going to be about learning how to work on yourself and like heal inflammation, and definitely get some blood work done because Aries can be about the blood. Like you're really going to feel this start to kick up in April. So I want to be honest with you, like with Mars coming into conjunction with Saturn, with Venus hitting Chiron, like I would be trying to do infrared saunas personally, and I would be trying to, get adequate rest and maybe doing some like workouts at night and be incorporating like a better sleep routine and a winding down routine, because even though you're an Aries rising, you're registering as almost like a Taurus rising where they're getting hit with all the collective stuff, and it'll impact your sleep, your dreams, all of that stuff. Chiron transits ultimately teach you how to make lemonade with health crisis, and it teaches you what you learn to kind of heal yourself, and that it becomes like medicine. In the background, Chiron is making some positive aspects, like it's trining your moon. So I'd be like, oh, art therapy, playtime, creativity, drawing, dance, like all of that stuff. And she says I'm anemic, so I'm getting iron infusions. Yeah, Aries is iron, by the way. And when you go through these transits between like now and let's say mid-April, between the eclipse, which does highlight, healing some of your health issues, some of the retrogrades, which is about going in and getting treatments or getting things that can be like IVs, all of that stuff is kind of happening. And then as you're getting into late April, things are going to start to subside a little bit. The other thing that's going on is while this is happening on your ascendant, it's opposing Pluto. So you're so kind of like all hands on deck with your health stuff that it's not about relationships, but there's more of a focus on the self rather than feeling like super, oriented towards relationships. That will come. You'll get an opportunity to focus on that more. That'll be like July and August when the eclipses are in your 5th house, which can be really great for you, especially when it comes to new love. And then a reassessment of relationships in the fall. Look at it like this. You have to be putting yourself first right now. That's the most important thing. And you may see during some of the retrogrades and the planets conjuncting Saturn that people are coming in going, how can I help you? Whether it's a therapist or if it ends up being like, getting a reading. It could also mean that this is about people who kind of come out that are here karmically to help you, especially when Venus hits Saturn, Venus hits Neptune. You're going to see some of that stuff where people will be willing to kind of help you, especially like in medical or spiritual settings.
I would be meditating with Saturn and Neptune in my 12th and be finding time to be able to kind of work out to reduce inflammation and also manage stress, anxiety, and like help with better sleep. The other thing that's really prominent also is that you are a Virgo, right? So like from the perspective of Virgo, these eclipses are coming through in Virgo. So it does represent clearing stuff out from your body, from your habits, and it's in your 6th. So it's a double dose of, okay, where do I need to make some changes and adjustments to my schedule, my habits, or my work? So that way I can better align with what's going to be healthiest for me. Well, this retrograde is actually happening in the 12th. So not all of it is necessarily, are you eating, your vegetables? Are you taking your vitamins? Some of it's like, am I working too much? Am I being too critical? Am I being too hard on myself? Am I not making enough time for play? Am I not making enough time for rest? And like, I think just having Mars going into your 12th house, and I said this in my weekly horoscopes this week with Mars and Pisces, I was like, just Mars going into your 12th house would be enough for me to be like, okay, Aries, go rest. But a retrograde and an eclipse, and a lot of this can mean a lot of it's emotional, and like the spirit's like, hey, I need a rest. And so I'm showing you all the warning signs where I'm having all the inflammatory stuff, I'm having the health issues because you're not getting the message. This is the 3rd time we've had these eclipses. So go back, look at what happened in the spring of 2025. This is very similar to that. Mercury retrograde in Pisces, lunar eclipse in Virgo. Probably had some health stuff that started getting kicked up then, and you listened, I'm sure. And you had another one last year in the fall, which was in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, which was kind of in and out of your 12th house. And that was showing you whether or not, you needed to then make some course corrections to your job, or you needed to take some time off. My point is that, yes, it's emotional and it's also just very draining, but you need this time before you're getting into mid-April, because then you're going to start to get your groove back. And even though Chiron will be on your ascendant, I think with like planets going through Aries, you're going to be feeling like it's really kind of like that rebirth period. And naturally, when you see all the stuff that happens when planets go through Pisces right before we get into Aries season, it's like this whole reassessment that's like, okay, what am I holding on to and what am I letting go of? Well, everything is ruled by Jupiter. So sleeping, resting, walking, journaling, and also you're clearing a lot of like emotional baggage, you're clearing a lot of family stuff. It could be really good for you to travel and maybe like be around water, or be by the beach, or maybe be listening to ocean sounds while you're driving, while you're walking. I mean, anything that's going to be really helping you attune to the emotional stuff will help you better prepare for some of the things that are going to be coming in April. So go and learn about Chiron on your ascendant. Look forward to June and July and August when you start having Jupiter in your 5th. I think you're going to be a lot happier. You're going to see a lot of creative opportunities, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities for relationships. And I also want you to go and learn about Uranus on your North Node, because this does shake things up pretty radically, especially with your finances, because it's on the cusp of your 2nd house. It could also mean that your nervous system is just really stressed out. And so grounding is really important right now. And you may be a lot more sensitive to frequencies or like electronics. So having a day that you're like unplugged can be really good. And it's allowing you to kind of break out and go, you know what, my goals are changing. There's something that's shifting about how I want to live my life. And if it means I need to readjust my finances or do some things to kind of get a little bit of a break, it can be really beneficial. And Uranus on the North Node is where everything suddenly feels like it's going haywire. And it's squaring your sun. So it means that it's really showing you like, hey, whatever you've been doing is not making you happy. So your body's trying to get you to slow down and listen to the signals it's sending you, so that way you can tend to it, but then also start making time for things that you enjoy, right? Crazy that you say about the beach and the ocean. I live in Florida and I have been wanting to go something, keep saying to go by the water. Yeah, it's the Neptune. It's Neptune, Mars going into Pisces. Being by water is going to be very therapeutic. And even if you can't be by, if you're by a beach, I would be going to a beach regularly, like literally. Like when you have days off, I would just go for a walk on the beach, or I would just go and sit on the beach and I would read, or anything that's just going to be allowing you to relax, because that's going to help. And if you can't do that, being by a pool, being by a lake, going to a spa, that kind of stuff can be helpful as well. But this is about finding peace when like the world is getting very loud. And you're going to be absorbing and picking stuff up that's kind of in the ethers. And you'll notice you'll have like a lot of changes with your dreams, and you can have some nightmares. Usually Mercury retrograde with Mars in the 12th house produces nightmares. But there is a lot of you absorbing stuff that's going on collectively, but it's also connected to you clearing out like stuff that's emotional baggage and stuff that's like past life related. But on the other side of these transits, like I have to tell you, Aries risings are going to have a really amazing time of summer. And I don't know if it's because they're going to have a creative breakthrough and they're going to be like, hey, I want to start my own business, or I want to do something fun, or you meet somebody new. But it has to be like all hands on deck with your health between now and the end of April. That is the most important thing. And it's not just about getting the treatments and eating well. It's about resting and also listening to what the soul is telling you as well. And you'll see this. It's going to get real, especially right around mid-April. So make sure that you're just managing anything, especially health-wise, because the 12th house can be like hospital stays and things that are connected to hidden places and feeling kind of secluded. So if you're getting into being able to kind of heal yourself emotionally and be working on that now, I think you're going to be feeling more capable of being able to take on some of those heavier kind of Aries transits, right? I have another client that's got almost, I think they're born like right around the same time as you. They have like the same aspects, and I've been seeing a lot of the same things that they've got going on. Literally, like you guys are 2 days apart, also in Aries rising. And they are like having to take like a leave of absence from work right now. So, you know, sometimes it's playing hooky, sometimes it's just using your PTO, you know, sometimes it's like, hey, you know, I have to choose between my work and my health, you know, but like whatever's going on right now, your body needs rest. You're welcome. I hope you hang in there and heal quickly and feel great, especially on the other side of that. All right, we've got Kristen, Adriana. You guys are next. So let's pull up that. All right, so we've got Christian, and that is May 2nd, 1996 at 5:28 a.m. in Louisville, Kentucky. And the question was, I want to know how this eclipse will affect me and my current transits. All right, well, let's look at it. How's that Saturn return going for you? Oh man, I had transit Saturn hit my Neptune. I have Saturn and Neptune conjunct, so what you're going through, I'm born with. And I couldn't imagine going through a Saturn return with Neptune. It's pretty wild for you guys that are going through that in the 1996 kind of period. So obviously the eclipse is going to be in your 6th house. So there are similar themes that have been going on, you know, spring of 2025, fall of 2025, now spring of 2026. That's wrapping up, concluding, and completing something that deals with your 6th house. Where you work, your health, your habits, your pets, things that are connected to habits. I actually feel like this is a really good lunar eclipse for getting rid of bad habits. If you have a habit of staying up late watching TV, right, of not eating well, forgetting to take your vitamins, not making time to go to the gym, maybe it means that you've been kind of working or, you know, overworking or been in like a toxic kind of job situation. This is showing you where it's time to let some of that stuff go, right? So she says, it's going pretty good. I've just been busy. So good. I'm glad to hear that. It's a lot about your Saturn transit. It's a lot about your career. But what's going to happen here is when you have this lunar eclipse, it's clearing out something about your daily routine and your habits. And I've seen a lot of Aries risings that are like, I got sick in the last month. I'm still trying to recover. I've seen some people that are moving offices. I'm seeing other people that are having issues with their pets. In your astrology, it's not really doing too much damage. It's actually trining your sun. So it looks like if you're working hard, it's influencing the money that you're making. And it's also making you feel more confident about your eating habits and your spending habits and your budgeting habits. Although Uranus conjunct your Mercury might have you kind of thinking otherwise. You're also going to see that when this eclipse comes in, it's trining your Jupiter. So this is actually making a grand Earth trine in your chart. Jupiter helps you excel within your career and your reputation and kind of bring in more abundance or more kind of recognition. And the sun in Taurus is going to be stabilizing your money and your resources. So, you know, where some Aries and Aries risings, I'd be like, look, you guys might lose your job or you might have a job change, you know, or there could be a change that's going on potentially with your guys' careers. Yours doesn't strike me as that. To me, it almost looks like if there has been a sense of overdoing it and overworking like other Aries risings, Mercury going retrograde in the 12th is like, yeah, I need a break. I need to rest, you know, or I'm learning to leave work at the door. Or I'm not taking it home with me, or I'm not allowing myself to feel totally consumed with what's going on in the workplace. I need to sleep. I need to get some peace. You know, sometimes it's about unplugging and not being available. And knowing that, you know, the work day ends at 5 or 6 p.m. and you go home and you're learning to break that bad habit of not responding to emails when it's your day off or outside of work hours, not bringing work home, not allowing yourself to skip meals or anything that deals with self-care because you are working so much. So the Mercury retrograde is saying that. You're also going to see this with the full moon, you know, and there can be a sense of there being changes like in the office space. So it's not unusual for Aries and Aries risings to see, oh, there's layoffs, or, you know, people quit their positions, and, you know, now there's more work that we're going to do. What are we going to do? And because Mars rules your chart and it's going into the 12th, it means you're going to be like, I'm going into hiding. I don't care what chaos is going on at work. As long as I'm employed, I know, out of sight, out of mind. You will probably see when Mercury comes into conjunction with the North Node that there will be a sense of you going, do I want to take on this extra responsibility? Do I want to take on having to make this sacrifice? You know, can I take more on? And I would be like, really think about it, because Mercury Mars is saying it may not be best for you. Watch for some changes with your sleep patterns that can also happen in mid-March. And then as soon as the eclipse is over, I think it'll probably be just about over when Mercury is outside of the same degrees where we had the eclipse. So right around the beginning of April, right? Ironically, right when the Sun and Saturn are sitting on your ascendant. So that is going to be a test. It's going to test you to see if you're willing to rise to the occasion, if you can really prioritize your happiness, your work, your productivity, and likely be gaining some sense of confidence in some new responsibility that you have, right? Saturn rules your career. So it might be that people are like, wow, things went kind of crazy. We were short some people, or we were understaffed, or, you know, and she took it on and she was able to handle everything. And now you're getting recognition and there's more responsibility. Like, that's the kind of stuff that can happen with that transit. Work has been going really great. New boss has been great too. So that's awesome. So, you know, part of that could be your Saturn return, just that you have a new boss and Saturn's in a fresh sign. But we're going to see the boss get tested. Saturn is the boss. Saturn's in the 12th. So the truth is I look at this and I go, there may be some things that the boss doesn't know how to do, or there may be some things that, you know, they kind of get tested under pressure, and you're starting to go, ooh, do I jump in and do I help them? Just observe. Because there will be some things where you're either going to have a little bit of a brief misunderstanding with somebody at work, or somebody's going to mess something up and they're going to be asking you for your help, or you can see that there could be some chit chat at work. Because, I mean, the 12th house represents hidden enemies. So when you start to see retrogrades going from the 6th house and the 12th, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to blame other people, and they're going to try to get you involved in it. And I would be like, don't. Mercury Mars tells me that there could be some gossip or some chit chat going on amongst people at work. And if you get involved and if you're overhearing things, I would just be like, I'm not getting involved in this, because somebody might try to throw somebody under the bus, or somebody's going to be trying to get you to take on a job that is not your responsibility. Besides that, things do get a little bit easier once you're getting into like later April going into May, you know, once you get kind of Mars out of aspect to Saturn. The testy days at work, and you don't see it yet because Neptune hasn't hit your Saturn yet, but the testy days at work are coming. You're going to see this basically from March the 23rd through, let's say, round about the 15th of April. And then it's going to come back, and you're going to see this again April 17th, pretty much until the 24th, right? I don't like the drama at all. Yeah. Well, like I said, 12th house is where you can kind of like run and hide. So you're like, I'm not getting involved. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, you know, be hearing whatever issues everybody's having in the office. Like, just try to avoid it. And if you can keep boundaries where you're not kind of engaging with some of that behavior, and you're also not condoning it either, you're going to kind of protect yourself a little bit better, because you can get tied up in some drama. But the eclipse overall, there's still one more that will happen at the beginning of next year. And that one's going to be very prominent for my Aries risings. It's going to be a lunar eclipse in Virgo. I think it's like February-ish of next year. And it's going to be conjunct Mars retrograde. So it still tells me that there can be a sense of you still reevaluating, you know, where you're working, your career, if you like your office, if you like your staff, or if your job is somehow changing in a very dramatic way, the beginning of next year. So for the time being, avoid the drama like the plague. Look for the eclipse to help you really solidify your status at work and also improve your finances. and then watch what happens during that kind of mid-April period. That's when you're going to kind of feel the heat. Good time to shed old habits, though. That's very strong for my Aries charts. A lot of you guys have Saturn and Mars going into your sign. You're focusing on fitness and like working out. So it can be good for dietary changes as well. All right, so we've got Adriana, the real MVP. Thanks for waiting. You're welcome. All right, so we've got Adriana G, 9/9/2000, 5 p.m. in Elmhurst, Illinois. There's been a couple of you guys tonight from Elmhurst. Can you tell me what to expect, what I can expect to see my son start working again? Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. That's great. That's part of your Saturn return. All right, Adriana wants to know, when is her son going to start working again? Let's get the birth year right, shall we? 9/9/2000. I think there's another Adriana G. Where is it? Well, let's go and make it. And that was around 5 p.m. There we go. All right, so when can I see your son working again? So career is going to be more linked to Venus, which is, well, actually, no, I take that back. This chart's a little skewed. It's going to be connected to Mars, Scorpio in the 10th, or Pluto. So we've got natal Pluto that is in Sagittarius. We've got natal Mars that is in Leo. And it looks to me like to see a pretty prominent change with the career stuff. One would be the eclipse that he just had that was connected to his whole sign second house for making money. The second would be when we see a prominent Mars transit. So you're going to see, for example, when Mars comes into conjunction with the North Node, I would be watching, does this promote his ability to be working? Right around March 13th through the 17th, when Mercury's retrograde conjunct it, or he has like an idea of something he could do that's more creative or something that's going to be more a side hustle. And then we're going to see a full moon in Libra can bring some significant changes for work. So look at this. He's going to have a full moon on April 1st in Libra, which is his whole sign 10th house of career, conjunct Venus. Okay? And so when it conjuncts Venus, that may actually bring him something prominent, and it's going to trine Pluto. My guess is the first time that something may really open up would be around early April. And then Jupiter is also direct in his 6th house of work as well. And then another thing that we can look at is when the actual full moon is going to be in his Placidus 10th house, which is going to be a little bit ways down the road. And that's going to be closer to here, which you'll have a full moon on his Pluto, as it looks like, around the end of May. So early April, end of May are the two times, and he's got another checkout, Jupiter on his North Node. So he should be working by the end of May. That's what it looks like to me. Let me see something else. What kind of work is he in? What does he do for work? Let's look at his solar arc. So, wow, his solar arc sun is conjunct Venus. So what's going on? Saturn's hitting his opposition to his Venus. That could definitely kind of bring some delays and kind of feeling like stuck at home. He's got solar arc, moon in Aquarius. The eclipse was just on his moon.
We've got nothing that's squaring his 10th house. Jupiter is the Lord. Saturn's coming into a square with Jupiter. So that could be it. I don't know if you're still here, Adriana, but I mean, this is kind of tricky. You know, you're going to hear for a lot of my Capricorn risings, like Saturn and Neptune going in the 4th house, so suddenly now they're at home, or they're having to work with family, or they're having to work with property or real estate, or they're doing some kind of home business or home care. And then on top of that, not only does he have that transit going on, but Uranus is hitting Saturn. I mean, it means that he equally wants out of the house. Like, he wants to be working, but it looks like he's going to have to get creative and be willing to take some flexible potential kind of side hustles and jobs if potentially need be, especially in April and May. Now, that's not a bad idea with Jupiter on his North Node. If he was willing to, you know, work with pets, walk dogs, house sit, take care of, you know, maintenance for properties. You could manage Airbnbs. You could do stuff that's more going to be connected to bookings or working in hospitality. These are things that would get him paid with Jupiter on the North Node. But the problem is that he's got Saturn and Neptune going in his whole sign 4th house, and Saturn hasn't left his money house. So it's still going to be 2 years of having to work hard and really probably do some things he's not entirely sure he wants to do. And Saturn's also opposing his Venus, which means he would rather be working and doing something else, but it's going to be a lot of feeling like he has to make money any which way he can. And Pluto is sitting on his moon, which means that it's a lot of emotional pressure for him right now. And he's feeling probably quite stressed out because he feels like nothing is quite going his way. And it brings up, like, obviously his mom is his moon, who's like, you know, trying to figure out what's going to happen with his career through astrology. I mean, you're coming through this. I would imagine with like Uranus just hitting Saturn alone, it would be somebody who's just like, I don't want to be stuck here. I don't want to be at home all the time. And then having Pluto hitting the moon is like, okay, lots of emotional turmoil. I mean, I can't imagine he's doing very well with some of these transits. The positive, though, is that I think as Saturn is going through his 2nd house, trining his Pluto, if he's willing to transform something about his career, or if he's willing to learn a new skill, or if he's willing to do something that's connected to a home business, a family business, property, or home care of some kind, it would buy him some time. And then it would set him up. So if he did decide that he wanted to make money and be working and he needed to move or relocate, he could. But next year, when you start seeing Saturn going into his 3rd house, this is going to be more about education. And it's going to be whether or not he's going to learn something. We always look to the midheaven to see like what somebody should be doing. And so if he's got Scorpio midheaven, I mean, there's a million things. His career will change a lot throughout his life, but Pluto is going to dictate and determine what's that going to be. Sagittarius, his career changes through education. And Chiron and Pluto together means that he has to learn to heal some of the insecurities that he has about work and his purpose. If he can do that, especially, it wasn't going to come until he was older. I mean, he still may be trying to figure out what he wants to do until he's 30. Until he gets to his Saturn return and he's like, okay, I don't want to feel like I'm, you know, having to stay at home or having to rely on family or having to rely on my parents. It's going to force him to go, oh, I need to now do something that's education based and get out of the house or work for myself, right? That might be something else that he finds very interesting, is if he can start his own type of business. But there's certainly things that he can do that's more kind of, you know, Cancer related over like the better part of the next couple of months. But my God, this kid's going through a lot of transits. Pluto moon, Saturn in opposition to his career lord, Uranus conjunct his Saturn. He's got eclipses that are on his sun. He's getting it from all different angles. And perhaps maybe the Mercury retrograde too in Pisces from a whole sign standpoint in the 3rd house would be like, okay, is this now a time for me to be learning new skills? Could I do that? Should I do that? And when it comes to like where he's working, his moon is conjunct Neptune, which means also mom is very influential or kind of on the lookout for, oh, where could he get a job? What could he be doing? But as Pluto's hitting his moon and his Neptune, it means that really what he needs to learn is skills. He needs to learn a specific set of skills. And while that's conjunct his moon and Neptune and trining his Saturn, it could really help set him up for the long term. I mean, I look at this and I'm like, dude could be a plumber. Like, he could. I mean, with the Scorpio in midheaven and Pluto in the 10th, sure, he could do plumbing. I mean, that doesn't sound glamorous, but I think that would set him up. And I think a lot of people who are going through similar transits right now, whether they're having a Jupiter transit in their 6th, if they're at Aquarius rising or a Capricorn rising, would really benefit from being like, what skills involving home and housing and stuff? Like,
Everybody wants to be a lawyer. They want to be a doctor. They want to be an influencer. That's great. But those times are changing. We're going to see over like the next 6 months to 2 years, the jobs that are going to be the most needed are going to be like HVAC, air and like cooling, plumbing, welding, like things that are going to be more, like jobs that are going to be like, like trade jobs, I guess, not trade jobs, but there's a word for it. But those types of like blue collar type of jobs are going to do well. And if he's interested in getting involved in something where he can like work as an apprentice or like work with like a mentor, because it's also trining his Venus, that could set him up for having job security that may be better than kind of spinning his wheels. And if he doesn't figure it out, he may still get employed this year, but he will probably get to his Saturn return because Saturn represents himself. And if it's opposing Pluto, he'll go, okay, if I haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do when I grow up, now I'm going to figure it out because I don't want to live at home. You can get the show on the road now while Uranus is coming into conjunction with Saturn. And that's why I said like, probably like electrical, like an electrician type of job would be good for him. Like he would love that with all of his Aquarius and his Gemini. Or if he wants to learn something about coding, or if he wants to learn something about engineering or like technical skills, like that would be really good with all of his kind of like air planets that he has in his chart. And he could start learning it now in preparation for his Saturn return. So the question is do you just want to get him a job so he's employed, or does he want to do something that he really loves? Because he has to be passionate about what he does according to his chart, Scorpio midheaven, right? Just some food for thought. So I don't even know if you're still watching, but take it easy on the kid with these transits. These are some really big transits happening all at one time. And certainly, even if he finds something that's kind of part-time or he's not crazy about, he has an opportunity to make a change with his career in June when there's a retrograde in his 6th house. And then the bigger one, I think, is actually going to be coming in the fall when there's some retrogrades that are going to be in Libra. But you can support him by talking to him about developing necessary skills or training or certification to not just get through the next like year or two, to prepare him for the future. Like, I don't have kids, but if this was my kid and they had that chart, I'd be like, do you want to be a plumber or an electrician? Pick. Which one do you want to be? Like, I know that sounds like crazy, but like he's got Pluto on his moon, so you could really influence him right now by being like, look, I think this is a really good idea. You should consider this. Like, and you can do that. But don't worry so much about him with your moon and his moon and Neptune sits on his ascendant. Don't worry him, and you don't need to coddle him or baby him. Try to inspire him, because if you're doing that, that's really going to help. Gotta say, the electrician came to my mind before you said it, Candace. I'm an office manager in a handyman field already, already short on qualified, experienced people. He would understand being an electrician because he has all of that Aquarius in his chart, and also, Saturn being in Gemini, like. In a number of years, when we start to see that he's coming into his Saturn return, and that's going to be when there's going to be major developments in tech. Like if he's getting in on the ground floor with anything electrical or tech related early, or automotive, that could be another one, right? Or engineering, that could be another one. Like he will be a part of the generation that's going to understand all the new technology that's starting to come out now and how it's getting kind of implemented. And like people, for whatever reason, they're not like, I understand it doesn't sound glamorous to be like an electrician or to be like a plumber, but like some of these people are making just as much money, if not more, than doctors, and they don't have to, have that kind of a grueling schedule, and they could build up their business to the point where they're hiring other people to work for them. Talk to him about that. Talk to him about the freedom that he would have, not just from feeling like he has his own space, but he would have a lot more control in a business situation if he was open to some of these potential traits, Yeah, I would say, family too. He has Saturn in the 4th. So there's uncles or cousins, right? That's Gemini, who may potentially be in fields that can help influence him. And like, these are going to be some of the jobs that are going to be, unless you're painting or you're, an artisan something, or if you're able to make something by hands, or you're a carpenter or something that you can make that a computer cannot make, you're going to get replaced, okay? So it's very important while he's going through these transits, we can steer him in the right direction so he's not having that existential crisis when he's like 28, 29 years old. It'll help him a lot. So hopefully that's helpful. Get him out there. If he's not working, he should be an apprentice. There's no excuse not to be learning like a skill or be learning something in the process. It'll be good for him in the long term. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that that's helpful. You let me know. Come back. Give me your feedback. Let me know with what happens with your guys' readings. I hope you enjoy the eclipse on the 3rd. Obviously, it's happening now, and it might be shaking out for a couple weeks. So try to be patient. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, come and join me on the next couple of Fridays. Next week will be tarot. After that, we'll be doing obviously the full moon. That's going to be in Libra. So make sure you're subscribed. Give me a thumbs up. Like this video. Sharing is caring. Make sure you guys join me on Sunday for the astro weather. We're going to talk about Mars going into Pisces. And yeah, check out my links below if you guys want to see more about me. If you want to book a reading with me, I'm booking now in May and June of this year. So I'm usually booked out a couple months. But if you know you have a birthday over the summer or something, get on my books and check out my courses and my calendars if you guys want to see all those goodies. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday night. You enjoy this eclipse. And I'm sure I will see you guys all back here throughout the week. So take care and enjoy the rest of your weekend.